Hey, welcome everybody. Give me a moment. Welcome to the office hours. My name is Paul Berserker01 Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender at the AstroPub, your space bar at the end of the universe. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. We got a good one for you. This is a live stream where I talk about Star Citizen lore, news, and more. The Titanfall news that I'm going to talk about as well, because I'm also a big fan of Stompy Robots, and Titanfall is one of the best games to have ever released, ever. I will fight people for that. I know I'm not visible. I'm almost done. Give me a moment. I like live streams being live. Well, this is live. It's totally not pre-recorded. I'm totally not sitting here playing Elder Scrolls Oblivion, the remaster. Actually, I'm not. I pulled it up for like 5 minutes last night after I was finishing up some stuff on the next lore video. There's a long story, but pretty much this entire month when I've been working on the Banu primer, every time I sit down to do it, like something fucking weird happens or something happens on the process of like, oh, I'm gonna do it today, and then
you can take away my space suit.
I finally yesterday was able to sit down and get some more significant work done on it, but still probably a couple of days away.
Take away my space.
So I'll probably just release it to everybody this weekend. Normally I say, oh, this is gonna be a short one, but I have no idea because it's an SCL, so we're gonna be watching mostly that. Robo Gulina.
Saint 3 Ked just resubscribed for 6 months.
All right. Hello, welcome. My perfect genetics in Star Citizen. Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about that. What I'm going to say is I haven't watched the whole thing, but the summaries and other things I've read, I'm like, oh, fuck. Still cover Star Citizen lore, but I am, my cynical side is starting to creep in and be like, yep, I don't think CIG knows what the fuck they're doing. I mean, obviously, the gameplay drives the lore, but it's like, it's such a shame.
Trip, super chatted $10. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run around and desert you.
Hey, Trip, thank you so much for that $10. You're very important, Pupper. Van Press Sir. You rock. Shots. And cheers. Thank you for that tip. Yeah. I will express my own concerns right now before we get into this, which is I'm afraid that CIG has created a interesting universe that they spent years building around the framework of what they had. And now that they're facing down, they're sitting there and be like, okay, we need to get a story out for 1.0. They're sitting there and staring at their story and going, we have no idea how to tell this. And so instead of leaning into the elements that make Star Citizen interesting, at least in my perspective, and I think in a lot of people's perspective, it's this visible, this the kind of fleshed out universe with the coherent thought put into it. Instead, they're going back to this, what CIG does always, which is rule of cool. They're letting their narrative team come up with cool ideas, regardless if it has any point in the plot. They're looking at what they have in terms of like tech, and they're just doing what they have in terms of tech with what they have. The idea that like CIG isn't going to explain away, isn't going to give a reason for why there's so many Idrises in capital ships. I'd be like, you have to just kind of like suspension of disbelief. But it's like, but you fucking built an entire idea behind why respawn happens. Like, you can't do both. You can't both be super interested in everything that is going on in the universe and being like, okay, we have to explain everything, and also go space magic. Like, do one or the other, and sort of try to make it make sense. Don't try to do both. And I think that's kind of the summation of what CIG's problem is as a whole. They have no idea what game they're making, so they're trying to make every game. And when you make every game, you fail at it. They could have held off with just held off with the regen crisis, to be honest. I've always thought that the regen crisis was a introduction to the idea that regen exists. Most people don't actually know what regen is in terms of lore, so this was their attempt at sort of building it into lore enough that it makes sense. Ships need to be a tool, not a character. Ships can be characters, and they can be characters in a mechanical and a narrative sense and a mechanical sense. But they are also tools to deliver gameplay. CIG has never not said that they want players to feel connected to their ships. Yeah, Serenity from Firefly, the NCC 1701, right? The Defiant, the Voyager, the Millennium fucking Falcon. A rule of cool story would be a tale about Flippity the Space Cowboy, Pirate Valakar, who is looking for a man that's killed his ice cream man's son. Not really, because that's not cool, that's just random. Rule of cool is whatever the designers decide is cool and they want to try to do. And, it doesn't matter if it makes sense in the universe they've created. It doesn't matter if it's like cogent with the backstory. They just sort of like, the story doesn't matter. We can do what the fuck we want. We'll just make it make sense later, which is one of the worst impulses of a video game designers. It's not unique to Star Citizen. It's a problem with a lot of video games where like their goal is to make a fun game first, and the story sort of is an afterthought. So mechanics over narrative. And I understand that perspective, but with CIG's explicitly creating a universe with like Squadron 42 based, Star Citizen based, why not just make them two different universes at this point? Just make Squadron 42 its own universe because you want to care, you want people to give a shit about the story there, and make Star Citizen a completely separate universe where you don't give a fuck. Because that's the way it's moving right now. The fact that these two are in the same universe is kind of like looking at games like Fallout or Halo, where the story's been going on for so long and new writers of Star Wars, great example of this, where like they just sort of like go, well, we'll just hit the reset button and do what the fuck we want. And we don't really give a shit about what's come before because it's too restrictive. That's my fear of what's going on with Star Citizen right now, is they're just kind of letting the old gamer impulse, the old game developer impulse of like, we want something that's fun and cool first, and then we'll make it make sense later. And it's like, you can do both. And restrictions breed creativity. Hey, Diablos. I'll go back on it because there's the last big sandbox game, but Atlas RP is a good example, or even ARC. The ships and dinos are cool, or utilities of the story, in some cases, completely irrelevant to what was happening. Star Citizen solely relies on ships to carry the weight. In terms of what? And I would disagree. There's plenty of people who built ships that they became emotionally attached to in Atlas, or named their dinos and became super tight with them. There are players who also just saw them as the most meta way that they can do things, but that's not going to change. Star Citizen's, if you're talking about Star Citizen's narrative is not ship-based in terms of creating ships as characters. It's far more sandbox-based, where it's like the idea is to create an interesting environment that then can sort of bounce players off of each other, stuff like that. And again, this is not me attacking CIG's writing or saying that Star Citizen's going to have shitty story. I don't believe the same people who created this backstory are intentionally fucking up whatever story they're going to do. I just have a bad feeling that the direction they're moving to right now is more vibes based rather than planned. We'll see. All right. We're going to watch this because it's going to take a while since it's an hour long. I might speed it up a little bit. Like 1.25, so it'll be a little shorter. But I'm going to stop and comment on this as well. So.
Hi, everybody. If you were watching on Twitch, I apologize. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. And if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take an indeterminate amount of time at the end of certain weeks to invite our developers on and answer questions from you, the Star Citizen community. On this week's show, we're going to take, I'm guessing looking at the questions, it's probably going to be about 30 or 40 minute show. We'll see in case you have somewhere to be. We have members of our esteemed narrative team, people who need no introduction, but I'm going to anyway. Dave and Will. Dave, how you doing?
I'm good. Good. How are you?
Good. Will?
That's my.
They need introduction, Jared. Nobody knows who these people are. I do, and a couple of people in chat do, but the vast majority of the Star Citizen community doesn't even know there's a fucking story in Star Citizen. They just assumed it was just another sandbox game that you just fucked around with tools rather than having a narrative.
My intro?
I can turn the volume up. The problem is that if I turn it up too much, then it overwhelms my voice because people complain about that in the past.
Look, look, they're not all going to be winners, and most of them won't be. Dave, Will, because somebody's show is everybody's first time.
Oh, that's why. Sure. Hold on. I was wondering what was going on. I have the limiter on. That's why extremely quiet.
Give me a second to parse that.
The mustache.
And somebody's last time.
The mustache does nothing for my performance. Tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
My name is Dave Haddock. I'm the narrative director here at CIG and work on Star Citizen, Squadron 42. Basically work with the team to flesh out, build out the universe, write the dialogue, come up with characters, come up with storylines, fiction, lore, item descriptions, all sorts of fun stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm William Weisbaum, assistant narrative director. I do what Dave does, but just
backwards
a
and
little
in
smaller.
heels.
Yeah.
I jumped in there. So this week's show, we put up a thread on Spectrum as we normally do and collected questions. Before we get into the questions, I want to start, I want to do a lightning round of some of the questions. A lot of the questions that come in tended to be more feature related, tended to be, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do this? There are a lot of questions that all have variations of the same answer and whatnot. So, we'll obviously be taking some questions from the chat here as well. So as to help guide those chats, the chat questions, and to help explain to those who submitted questions in Spectrum are like, well, why didn't they answer my question? It was voted up more. I want to talk a little bit about the difference between those questions and why the answer to almost all of them is pretty much the same. So some questions from the thing. Are there plans for any cutscenes in Star Citizen? Yeah, I think we'd all love that kind of stuff. But those resources are currently tied up finishing Squadron 42, the cinematics team, the facial animation team, all that stuff like that. And so that priority has to be there because that game is one that absolutely requires that. And where Star Citizen, that's a nice to have kind of thing.
So the question then follow up is, when will the Star Citizen have cutscenes? If you want to do cutscenes in Star Citizen to tell stories, which is fine, when are you going to do that? Because if Squadron 42 is the requirement right now, which obviously it is, considering everything that I've seen and heard from CIG, it's 2026. It's coming out in 2026. It's like, it's not a situation of like, oh, yeah, you believe them, Paul. It's like, no, it's like, this is CIG, like they're doing it because they have to, because like the writing is on the wall with a lot of things. This isn't from like internal CIG communications. I haven't heard anything like this on that. It's just based off of their funding and based off of a lot of like what you can tell from the outside. Like they have to publish by next year. It's required. But like we all of us know, Squadron 42 is act one of a 3-act story which we will get Squadron 42 Part 2 and Part 3 in future games. So when is that going to be the priority for Star Citizen? Because when Squadron 42 finishes, I'm sure those resources will be freed up, but how long until Squadron 42 Part 2 is in pre-production? A year, 2 years? When's the point where Squadron 42 Part 2 becomes the priority again, and then all those resources are taken away from Star Citizen? So I think the question is more, are you going to build a permanent team to do these sorts of productions for Star Citizen in the near future? Because if you want to do them, you're going to need to have a team to do them, because you're never going to have the ability to have two teams, or to be able to have one team to do both of these games at the same time. Because it's clear they don't have that resource management for whatever reason. So,
Any plans to integrate the Galactopedia into Star Citizen to help players keep track of the ongoing narrative in the game? Yes.
yes.
It's obviously something we'd all love very much, but that requires feature work and UI work. Again, both of those teams are working on not just finishing out Squadron 42, but bug fixing and optimizing the performance of the PU right now. So this year is a big push towards performance optimization and bug fixing. So we're really trying to hold back on introducing new features to the PU for at least a great portion of this year while we stabilize that. So again, something on the list, but is it more important than getting base building and crafting and our engineering finally in and stuff like that? So it'll be farther down the line, stuff like that. I thought Pyro narrative had the planet strip mined. That's another thing where
that was retconned.
We had that story, that idea way back when the first version of Star you got that right now. That's a narrative.
Should we go?
Yeah. Planets have to be realized in the tech that we have at the moment and stuff like that. So narrative.
Should we go?
Yeah. I'm doing the ones. I didn't want you to just. I'm setting a thing. I don't want you to have to tell people.
Okay.
I don't want you to have to tell people why these things can't happen right now.
Okay.
That's my job. That's and then just things like that. So basically, a lot of the questions that are why don't you do this now, or seem like some really obvious choices, like wouldn't it be so much better if you did this instead of this? The answer is almost always yes, and we agreed and we wanted to too. But the priorities of game development mean that other things take priority and other things have to come first and stuff like this. So, so with that, we're gonna move. Wow, I'll go really loud there for some reason. I'm sorry. I haven't done one of these in a while. So with that, we're gonna jump into actual questions that can be affected by narrative and stuff like that. So there's a number of things going on. I'm gonna start.
What frustrates me about SEO and ISCs are so shitty that every answer for every most non-content stuff they're showing is they don't answers, like these are tied to features, or we're not doing that because since February, bug fixing and working stability. So they have actually talked a little bit about this. They have talked about this because Benoit has discussed the two major features that they're working on right now that are the priority that are being added are the brand new transport system, or what is it called? Not transport system. Transit system, right? The transit system refactor. It's not a refactor anymore. It's a brand new thing. And the mission system. Those systems are being entirely built from scratch right now. And those systems are being added piecemeal right now to the game. Wiklo, for instance, is an example of the mission system. Wiklo is, I mean, I think they explain it in the video, that Wiklo was created specifically because Elliot wanted a mission giver to be able to give physical items as rewards for completing missions. So Wiklo is the work proof of concept of physicalization of rewards rather than just credits. And they're expanding on that idea as they're going. The transit system that they have fixed up right now is sort of like a patched, it's a hot fixed version of it. But the one that they're working on, which is a ground up rework, that one is they said like a couple of months away. I say 6 months. So probably in June is when that system's going to be put in place, and the mission system maybe around then or a little bit later. But it just takes time. They just started that working on those systems back in like January or December, and a lot of that stuff is just planned. So they have talked about it. It's just the answers suck. The answers are they're working on this, and the update is we'll tell you when it's done.
You can even take away my space lasers. But you can never,
Never,
ever
ever
take away my space game.
Jenantanak just resubscribed for 66 months.
Woo! Order 66. Hey, Jen, thank you so much for that 66 months of support. You're a very important pubber, very impressive Pennsylvania pedestrian. You rock. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. What about engineering, bounty hunting version 2, Planet Tech, what else? Solar flares, Nix. They have talked about all of those except for solar flares and Nix. They mentioned them in the monthly reports. I've done videos on them. Like, it's kind of insane how much they've done. They talk about specific things they've done for engineering and for crafting and for base building and for the scanning systems. In terms of bounty hunting version 2, none of those things can exist. That can't exist until all the things I just mentioned are going to be in the game because bounty hunting version 2 requires all of those things to exist. Planetech V5, they talked about how they're doing things piecemeal, but it's still a ways away. The stuff they showed off at CitizenCon was like the plan, the roadmap, but it's not the actual like coming in anytime soon. They've said that explicitly. It's not coming in anytime soon, like years sort of thing, like 1.0 level. That's all of that stuff is 1.0 stuff. Solar flares are specifically tied to the engineering though. And I will probably know more when they actually have engineering in game because I don't think it's something that's super crazy. They already have the effects for it. They might just update it and stuff. But to answer the question, Knowledge, it's in the monthly reports. A lot of the stuff that you're looking for is now in the monthly reports because they probably don't have the resources to put them on ISC or SCL. I'd love for them to do it. I think that would probably make people happier to know that they're not just abandoning those systems because that's what it looks like right now. But it's also probably because those people, if they have to be pulled off to go to SCL or ISC, they're not working on the systems. So it's one of those balancing acts. And they're likely going to be more focused on what's being put into the game now because they want to make sure that people know about all these sorts of new features and the new like hair and new missions and the storyline, because that's really what they're focusing on producing for players to engage with right now. As always, CIG is going to waste all of their fucking momentum through the summer and then scramble at the end of the year to release a big fat patch that's half broken that ruins all of the work they've done thus far. But that's the cynical side of me. All right, let's get back to watching.
Start with probably our most recent one, just for recency bias, the regen crisis was introduced in 4.1. Why don't you tell us what the regen crisis is?
So high level, was it 3 years ago? We had introduced this concept of regen. So it was a fictional way to justify why players are respawning. Came up with this lore behind it of the Abraham spheres and imprinting and stuff like that, and actually did it sort of in the timeline of the fictional universe. So it happened while players were playing. We introduced the tech. We kind of showed how the Imperator and the other people were kind of reacting to this type of thing. But now, basically, for whatever reason, the efficiency of the technology has been failing. So
they have momentum right now? Yes. Yes, they have momentum right now. Holy shit, do they have momentum right now? It's not like super hype amazing momentum, but yeah, they got momentum. Their funding is up. There's a lot more engagement. I'm seeing more engagement on the videos and content that I create. I'm seeing more people watching my live streams than I've seen in the past, and I'm looking at other content creators who are doing the same. As much as it may not be toe all of the narrative, the stuff that CIG is doing is definitely bringing a lot more interest in. And there's plenty of people who used to play Star Citizen who are now transitioning over to Star Citizen from other games, or who are currently looking at Star Citizen with like the free flight stuff like that. They have momentum. It's just not always going to be a visible momentum for everyone to see. But they will waste it in the summer. Like Invictus is going to be a crescendo of momentum.
Spoiler, it's not affecting the players, but for the majority of the NPC population, the efficacy of the regen tech has been dropping significantly. So basically, death is now becoming a thing again. They thought they'd kind of conquered it, and now it turns out that they're not. So currently, the UEE and the Imperator are basically trying to scramble to figure out a solution to kind of research and science their way out of this predicament to hopefully try to restore the tech to its former glory.
And I'm pretty sure, anything you want to add to that?
No, like during the run up to it, the tests and stuff, like as much as they tested the technology before it came out, once you increase the sample size to several billion, it started really quickly like kind of showing the cracks, and all of a sudden, all these people who thought they had their imprint safely stored away in a hospital because everyone went out and got their imprints to protect them, it wasn't until they put it to the test months later that they realized that the imprints had gone bad. And so it's kind of like, you know, these small incidences of like, oh, this whole shipload of people got into a wreck and none of them came back, and like, that's weird. And then it started piling up to the realization of, oh, this technology is not as dependable as we first thought.
And you kind of ran into the thing too, where people were starting to, you know, effectively get kind of cocky of like, oh, it doesn't matter, I can go and I can fly my ship into a wall and bounce back and everything will be okay. So not only is the samples pool increasing, but people could start abusing it and basically over and over and over again. And again, that could kind of raise the failure rate.
Yeah, so turns out a large percentage of the population doesn't take well to imprinting. Maybe they only have one imprint, maybe none. And it's not like the player population, just like the player population is the part of the universe who owns spaceships and goes on these great adventures, they're also the part of the population that takes really well to imprinting, so for the most part.
And this is a story that, you know, obviously we've just introduced it with 4.1.
I wonder if they're like, because we know about trauma echoes. Like that's one of the things they've talked about us. I wonder if in fiction, trauma echoes aren't fully understood. And so they actually thought that you would be able to live forever. And this is sort of their way of saying, actually, there's a limit to the tech. I'd love for that to be clarified, because we know that there is a limit to the regen. You're not invincible. You will eventually die. But maybe that, because it's only been around for 5 years, maybe there's just not really put that to the test until now. And now suddenly people are hitting their the IVS much faster than they thought they would. So,
And this is a story that will continue to be.
I also like the nice nod that players are like this special class effectively inside the game.
Revealed and continue, and players will have more interactions with it and stuff as the months go by later this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, as we had sort of talked about in one of the Inside Star Citizens, the idea is like we're introducing these sort of ongoing storylines. And so this is sort of the inciting incident for what we're calling kind of our B story.
Hathor is missing, apart from the reliable working laser, a mission giver, someone who mistakes a conspiracy, something that a human element of the story. We are the chosen ones. It's kind of lazy in that, but it's not unusual. DayZ has the similar story where like the concept of DayZ is that the player characters in DayZ are immune to the virus. So we're in DayZ, we're the naturally immune to the zombie virus, whereas other people weren't. So we are the chosen ones in DayZ, but just fucking kill each other in DayZ. So there is still that kind of narrative in there. So I don't think it's too unusual that we just happen to have the whatever lucky specs to be able to regen better.
So it's, you know, the threat of the regen crisis is kind of looming, and it's sort of
we're the
moving
pilots
pieces around
that runs
the
from
board,
Titanfall.
whether it's corporate interests, government interests, stuff like that, to kind of make decisions that the players will get to kind of see as they kind of go throughout.
I was hoping CIG would be daring and not let the players be the chosen ones. I mean, I don't think that's like too much to like. They're not like sitting there being like, "You are the chosen one. You are the Neverine. You are the awakened. Like you will save the universe." It's more just like, huh? You're fucking mutants. You guys weird mutations.
The universe.
Ancient Sail says, all this lore and background story over 14 years had zero representation of this in the PU. When is this content going to represent this? That's literally what the whole line in mind is for. That this is the reason you're going to these Hathor places and stuff, and the reason you're searching for these minerals and whatnot is to feed into Rayari.
Yeah, and there's going to be other ways that we're going to kind of start tying into this stuff a bit.
What was the whole spiel about them saying at CitizenCon they were all just another human in a complex universe? You're still just a human in a complex universe. This doesn't change that. It's just more of a explanation as to why players are able to regen more. And that's not too much to ask for. It's not like suddenly you're Superman or anything like that. It just, oh, you can die more. And I also wouldn't be surprised if CIG leans into that for story purposes. Like stories where people are taking advantage of you because you can die more. Like the UEE may be trying to recruit players to do things for them because they're like, it doesn't matter if you die, you're going to come back. So like narrative influences. I didn't think CIG was going to do that kind of shit. And then they introduced regen. And I was like, holy fuck. They are actually going to do this, aren't they? Congrats, you get to experience death 1 billion times. Yeah, no, the lore of regen is kind of brutal because it's the reason why you eventually stop being able to regen is because you give yourself PTSD. Basically, your brain can no longer handle the fact that you are alive. It rejects the fact that you are a living creature because you've traumatized it so much by dying as much. Because your body is not designed, your brain and your body is not designed to keep coming back.
A bit more, where players are going to be able to see the ramifications of it in the universe.
And hear NPCs discussing it. And
Someone else put it as that the Sigma Marines, what are they called? The Stormcast Eternals from Age of Sigmar, that kind of thing. Every time a Stormcast Eternal dies, they're brought back, but a piece of them are thrown away to Nagash. So each time they're brought back, they become less and less. They become diminished as they come back until they're basically husks.
You'll start to see more NPCs coming online. Again, the answer to, I bring up Ancient Sales question because the answer to that is essentially the same as the answer to the first 3 questions of the show. It's basically those development resources need to become available for us in order to manifest this stuff more fully into the verse. And we'll have some chat later on about how we're going to do that and stuff like this. It's one of those things where we shouldn't stop creating story. Just like anything else, we shouldn't stop adding money into the game. We shouldn't stop adding salvaging or combat or whatever. And the tools that allow us to make those things better will continue to develop as each patch goes on. The tools that will allow us to tell our stories better will continue to evolve as the patch goes on. Which the next question on here says, why doesn't the regen crisis affect the player?
I mean, it's mostly just for the fact that the players do need to respawn. I mean, regen still factors into the original Death of a Spaceman thing. So there is still that idea that your imprint kind of integrity will decay over time, and so we will still kind of feed it back into that original mechanic that Chris had talked about all those years ago. But it was mostly just the fact that it was players need to respawn otherwise.
Right now in the alpha state of our game and whatnot, we're being completely.
It'd be a bit too punishing.
We're being candid. The game is plenty punishing enough in a lot of places without us introducing this on top of that. Plus, again, that's new feature work and stuff. And as we've said since February of this year, like this isn't the year of too many new feature works. This is the year of stability and performances like this. Is the regen crisis a precursor to Death of a Spaceman? Is this, when this storyline wraps, will it have some effect on Death of a Spaceman when it gets introduced?
I mean, don't spoil.
Fair enough. Stay tuned. Keep playing.
Yeah.
I tried. How does it make sense narratively that this major crisis with regen is largely ignored by the UEE and they expect a bunch of randoms to solve it for them instead by knocking down all Hathor sites with the fleet? So, what is the UEE doing?
I mean, they're doing a lot. It's mostly the thing of like the effects of what they're doing are probably behind closed doors. They're happening in other systems and stuff like that. Again, we are
limited to the standard Pyro system right now.
Yeah, so they're certainly up to a lot. Trying to incentivize corporations to find a solution and incentivizing the population to help the corporations in scientific research and finding the resources and stuff like that. It's just, again, it's a player-centric experience. So obviously, we're focusing on.
I mean, they're putting a lot of resources. The UE is putting a lot of resources into trying to fix this crisis. The player isn't necessarily going to a UE research lab to seeing what they're doing. We're coming up with ways that the player can participate in this regen crisis.
And you will be, without spoiling, you will be going to some research labs, in the future. They may not be UE research lab, but you're going to be seeing what other people, like we've heard what Rayari is doing. You're going to start seeing what other factions and corporations are doing to attempt to address. Yeah,
and the reason why Rayari has all these funds to spend on these rare resources that the players are excavating right now is because the UEE is putting extra funding through Addison into researching how to fix this crisis.
Yeah. And for the regen crisis, is the player going to be focused on helping address it, or will players also have the chance to investigate why it's happening in the first place? What you can tell us without spoiling it, obviously.
it's more like they're experiencing a crisis firsthand, and how to phrase this. We're going on a journey, and we really wanted the players to feel like they're part of this unfolding. And so whether there's going to be concrete answers or solutions at the end of this, we're gonna leave it up because you're checking in with us halfway through.
Right.
So it's kind of a delicate position.
Not even halfway through. We barely got the first chapter. We barely got the first chapter of this out.
Well, and it's, again, yeah, sort of that idea of like Will said, that players are experiencing this as it's happening. So we're kind of starting to lay a groundwork of story continuity, which is, I think, a really exciting thing that we haven't really been able to do much before.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I said this in Captain's Table a while back, that I don't think this is the start of Death of a Spaceman. I think this is the start of CIG trying to explain the game to players, because you, dear viewer, who's watching this, and you, dear chatter, who's watching this, probably know more than your average gamer. You probably know more than your average Star Citizen player, because you're actively going out seeking this information on the internet. Whereas most people log in, play the game, and leave. So if you are that person who's just showed up right now, you probably have no fucking idea what regen is. So the game has to teach you what it is. And that's part of what they're doing here, is they're teaching you through a major story beat inside the universe. So we're just sort of there while history happens, which for all of us who've been living the last decade know how that feels.
Been having a lot of kind of, Simpsons cycles where it's just sort of like the status quo gets kind of reset, but now we're actually kind of establishing that, if someone starts playing the game in 3 months, their experience to things, when talking to somebody who's been playing it this entire time is going to be a little different, because the people who've been playing this entire time go, oh, well, you should have seen it, there was this regen tech and it used to work and now it doesn't work, and blah, blah, blah.
I mean,
that's the argument. I know why people hate FOMO, but that's the argument for FOMO. Like, this is an ongoing, evolving story. That is one thing that Chris said at the very beginning of the game. And when I talked with Dave Haddock here about that, he was very explicit when he said, like, the idea is the game will evolve. That CIG does not like the idea of resetting status quo long term, that there will always be a story that is evolving and changing. And as a result, the game you play today is not going to be the game you play later. At 1.0, the game you play when it releases is going to evolve beyond that 1.0 standard probably within 3 to 6 months as they evolve the story. The storyline will probably still be there in 1.0, and it'll always be there in some way, shape, or form, but there will be the grand narrative, the grand arc of the Star Citizen story will probably evolve beyond just what we see. So it's not going to be a situation like every other MMO where, like, the game you play at the beginning of the game is going to be the same at the end of the story, but plus other additional things. I think that 1.0 story will probably evolve and change as they go through as well.
This year's focus on doing these regular patches, monthly patches, have really been interesting us from a narrative perspective on how we can tell our story. Because normally, like previously we were doing the quarterly patches and stories were unfolding in a much greater amount of time, and how the players experienced it was kind of very different. But now we have a much more regular cadence, and so slowly, like, doing these little crumbs as we go and building into something bigger and bigger.
Yeah, we had 4 patches in 4 months. December, January, February, March. It's with Invictus being in the middle of May and whatnot. There's a 6-week gap instead of a 4-week gap there, and then our plan is to continue on that. That's May patch, June patch, July patch, August patch, September patch. So you'll see drops of this going through throughout the year. So that's all part of this major change, this content-driven, less feature-driven directive for this year. Adamant1, I think I'm reading that right, in the chat says, why focus on storylines while still in alpha? And will any of these storylines repeat once 1.0 or full live release happens? You mentioned earlier, like when you introduced regen and the Ibrahim spheres, it was in time and place 3 years ago. And whatever, these are story moments of where we are now in our sliding time scale.
Yeah.
So these aren't things that just repeat.
Well, it's also that, it's also a thing too. Some of the stuff I think, we had things like Siege of Orison, which were single events that we would repeat because it was a fun game experience and stuff like that. So I think it'll probably always be kind of a balance of that.
Yeah.
Like a line in mine is kind of an evergreen location. It's meant to.
It's not an event.
It's not an event.
It's a permanent addition to the.
So we're trying to balance between these story moments that you're experiencing right now with repeatable content that will kind of live on.
Yeah, it's no different than any other MMO. When you play the level 10 quests and whatnot, they happen much earlier in the ongoing saga, but they're always still going to be there playable. So this content is designed to always be there.
Yes, I think for the most part, yeah.
In the groundwork that we're laying with this new content, even if there's a story mission attached to it, we're taking the content itself and figuring out how to reuse it in a repeatable, playable experience.
Whenever CIG says narrative, I get concerned and tune out. Let's say it's their least strongest talent, to put it mildly. That's an interesting take, considering you follow me, Jim. Because I am, by any measure of a content creator, known mostly for my lore, and the lore I cover is Star Citizen, the narrative of Star Citizen. So I would disagree that is their weakest part. I think their weakest part comes down to their management, their production, not necessarily their story. So it's more about how do they implement said thing. I think they're failing on that part rather than the fundamentals. But that's the whole point of this year, is going to be narrative. So
there might be more event type stuff coming this year, but anything that we do, we're hoping to build into stuff that players will keep getting to enjoy and have fun with.
But I think what Adam might have been asking is this the 1.0 story, or is this something else? This is something else.
This is something else.
This is our 2025 storyline that we're.
And to his question, why? Why tell a story when you're in alpha?
Well, part of it is this is giving narrative a chance to be in alpha as well. We've been learning so much in this past 4 months of, now that the mission tools are in, now that the streaming content tools in, that we've been able to really ramp up how we deliver. And you're going to be seeing that more this year. And we've run into issues that we've been able to sort out with this earlier content and explore it as
we fooled you. That's an issue. Thank you. All right, that's something I've been saying for a while, that like I'm not going to be super harsh on CIG storytelling right now, because they're learning. This is them learning. So
as we build up to our 1.0 content.
And it's a thing too. I mean, we've been working with the designers and stuff like that. Of part of it is that giving the narrative wrapping to why you're doing something makes the doing something a little bit more engaging. So part of it is again, in this push for sort of greater engagement in the experience. It's let's add a story to it. So it's not just, hey, we introduced this thing, go have fun. There's a reason around doing it and driving players to go.
Why not add another layer?
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit of a thank you to the players who are playing it right now. You're playing in alpha, you're experiencing our game in development, and as part of that, you're getting to experience the regen crisis, which players who hop into the bandwagon 3 years from now won't. So good for you.
You said something. You said we're learning through this, and I don't think that gets. I mean, I've been doing this for a decade now, but I don't think I'll ever get tired. When I end the show, say, what did we learn this week? It's not. I'm not just speaking on behalf of the player and whatnot. Game development is this process of learning. Of this process, we've been learning for the last 13 years what this game that we're making is. You know, it's new people come in with new ideas, new technologies come on. We didn't think we were going to be able to have, like 360 degrees fully realized planets and stuff like this. And we learn as much about how the game is changing and how to make this game every month as players learn alongside us, and that's the virtue of ISC and SEL and stuff like that. It's all of game development is about learning in one way, shape, or form, not just for the players, but for the people who are making the game. And I really liked when you said that, so I want to. And then last question about the regen crisis: is the current respawn issue in 4.1 part of the B story, or is it a bug? No, that's a bug.
I wish it was. That would have been clever of us.
The other big addition recently is our first Banu, our first alien of any kind.
So excited to welcome.
Tell me about Wiklo. Who's Wiklo?
He's a Banu?
He's a Banu.
All right, moving on.
Good. It's great. That's all you need to know. Watch my video on the Banu.
Tell me more about Wiklo.
So Wiklo is a new addition to Stanton system. He is a fresh expatriate of the Banu Protectorate who has basically set up a shop. He divested from his Suli and has traveled around and he is fascinated and loves human culture. And so
he's 40 years old, by the way.
He decided to go set up a shop in Stanton system where he will happily trade stuff, build stuff.
Old for Banu.
Send you on food lunch orders. He's great.
And why now? Where did this idea that this was the time to bring this first come from? What can you remember?
We were charged with, from a design side, they wanted, this person who would taken a random collection of resources from the player who didn't have like a set style or anything, because basically this is like tier -1 of crafting almost. Like when crafting comes online later on, you'll be taking those recipe lists and you'll be filling them and you'll be putting them into your own crafting station. But those things aren't ready yet. But we still kind of wanted that gameplay loop for the players to start experiencing it.
Go find materials, bring the materials, turn the materials into a new thing.
Into a thing. And so this is the person who's kind of doing that through this trading shop. And so we were kind of thinking of like, who would we do that? And we had been really wanting to get aliens, because the Star Citizen is supposed to be populated by aliens. So we've been waiting for that opportunity. And so we kind of asked, and we're like, maybe?
And of course, like the answers at the very beginning, like we have to implement it as far as we can with the tech and resources that we have right now. Obviously, a fully P-capped Banu running around saying, "Hey, what's up?" You know, it's like we're not quite ready to do that because those resources are tied up with that.
Well, it's just the yeah. I mean, we P-capped him. I mean, he is fully P-capped. Yeah. But yeah, like what is the animation rig, the walk
full
cycle,
custom rig for a Banu
is something that hasn't been made. I mean, again, even the sculpt from it was relatively quick, because there had been sort of development on it, but not a real intensive like game ready asset made. So,
I mean, I think some very ingenious people found a way into Wiklo's room and discovered that Wiklo wasn't quite all there yet. So,
what's the average life expectancy for a Banu? The average is 60 years, 60 human years. But you know, that being an average means that Banu can live longer, but they can also live shorter. When you have been born and you are sold to your first Suli to work, you are given what's called the divestment clock. And that clock is 275 million beats. And that's about 40 years. So when that divestment clock runs out, that means you are now free. It basically means that you can divest from a Suli. That clock can sometimes go down faster if you pay for, you know, if you do something great or you have managed to get more money and stuff like that and speed it up. But generally speaking, around 40 years of age in Banu, in human years, 40 years. Banu is like 20 years, 20 to 30. You become retired. So you step away from your original Suli, and you can either start your own Suli, you can join another Suli. You basically are a free agent at that point. And so most Banu try to either establish their own Suli or sort of live the life that they want to once they have left their initial Suli, the divestment Suli. So Wiklo will be dead when 1.0 comes out. 20 years?
For those not in the know, he's currently a head and a torso that sits behind his desk talking to you. But that's going to develop more as we get more time to put him in. And hopefully one day he'll be walking around his emporium interacting with you is our long-term goals. So,
what Suli did Wiklo belong to in his past life?
I mean, I figure it was some kind of like fabrication Suli, because again, just to, you know, that's what he's been trained on and he knows how to do. I actually don't know if we've ever really delved into like the naming conventions of Sulis, but
it's usually after the person,
the owner.
Right. The items Wiklo asks for don't seem very thematic. Can you explain why Wiklo wants these particular commodities? Seeing as he's a collector, I feel it would be more fitting if he requested rare loot from the loot pool or something like the artifacts and war medals you can find. For the ship rewards, you should have to turn in an in-game purchased one or an exact hangar ship. Basically, this person's got a lot of ideas. But basically, the question is why is Wiklo after these things that he is and not collectible items to add to his menagerie?
Because he's also a fabricator. He's not just a collector. He's also, you know, producing his own items, and these rare resources are something that he desired, or maybe someone else wanted to trade with him. There's kind of several excuses. It's also partially in metagaming wise, it's the timing of his release is with the Mine and Line event. So we wanted something to tie it together with that. So it was kind of convenient.
And it's the intention with each patch that the things that he's looking for and ask for will change and stuff. In fact, in 411, we're introducing a guild script, a different like physicalized currency that players will find throughout the universe, and he'll accept those. Spoilers. It's my effing job.
Yeah, it's also important to remember too that he's, and this is one of the kind of beautiful benefits of him being a Banu, is that he's kind of eccentric. So to me, the thought of him going, hey, I want you to bring me like 30 pips cans, some Karenite, and a burrito, like made sense for him, because it's just like he's kind of weird that way.
What? I don't work for CIG, Jay. What are you talking about?
I mean, even for a Banu, I think he's on the eccentric end of things because he's living alone out in human space without a Suli. So like, it's kind of.
And for a little behind the scenes, I'll add. Like one of the suggestions of the person was like, you know, for vehicle rewards, you should be able to turn in one of the ones you've stolen and get it like this. He goes, we actually did look into that. We ran into a technical issue where the freight elevators couldn't destroy an item. So you load something in the freight. We actually tested. We actually intended to.
You're shouting at the wrong thing, Jay. Then you've walked into a McDonald's and shouting and have shouted at the customers that that McDonald's corporate has stolen your kidney. Okay. Thanks.
to do something like that. You'd load it onto the thing, it would come down and come up with something else, but it kept coming up with the existing item, and you just kept duplicating stuff. So we inadvertently created our own asset duplication thing. So it's one of those things where it's like that aspect of it was not able to make in the initial.
Does the sir, this is a Whammers basically. Does the Banu race have autism? We don't know, but the Banu are very odd. First off, they are very social. They do like to clump together, but Wiklo is a great example of sort of the exception to the rule of Banu. They are very solo, but there are also plenty of Banu who have fallen head over heels in love with human culture. The first Banu to ever meet a human, Jerry, was actually one of them. Jerry went around and toured the UNE at the time, talking about Banu culture. A lot of what we know about Banu culture originally comes from Jerry, because Jerry was so willing to share with people. And so humans have immortalized them. Jerry is one of the few Banu who will probably be remembered long after most Banu have died, because humans have a concept of history and the Banu don't. So we preserve Jerry's name and their legacy in the entirety of the universe. So, so they're like, yes, I'm totally that aimless. Me and Fiaste used to say we were going to form a law firm with Paul and Associates. The attorney, great. Help. Blackjack is asking questions about someone shooting the Xi'an embassy with a railgun. I need legal advice, somewhere to lay low for a while. Totally unrelated. I'm not Better Call Saul. Saul Goodman. But anyways, yeah, Wiklo is definitely a odd one. They're definitely one of those sort of like eccentric Banus. I'm just a simple country law daddy.
Release, but it is something we're still looking at. And for what and how it will be implemented, you'll find out when it's ready. But yeah, just again, it's another example of we're thinking the same things they're thinking. We're having the same conversations they're having, and the answer almost.
Give me mechs then, CIG. I know you're having this conversation. I know you're talking about it. Drop the Titans. Prepare for Titanfall. Do it. Adding pips cans to the trade deal is also a great Banu way of showing that Wiklo thinks you're getting a great deal, and he thinks he needs to balance the trade out. Well, one of the things about it is that I think even in the mission text, Wiklo goes like, "Oh, I don't actually need the burrito for the item. I'm just hungry." Wiklo is just constantly hungry, but that's also a very Banu trait.
Almost always to why didn't they just do that or whatever, is the thing we needed to do that wasn't ready. And if we waited until every single thing was ready, we wouldn't be running a live environment in the middle of our development. This month's story element was twofold: Wiklo's arrival and the regen crisis. This person wants to know, they were both after the same minerals. They were both after the same resources in many ways. It's like, does people helping Wiklo, is it going to hurt Rayari? Is this, are people automatically bad for choosing to get their ship instead of helping the human race?
Yes. I mean, it is effectively a moral choice. So, but I mean, they're technically the same story. They're just two halves of it. So the sort of B story is the resource mining and stuff like that. But we just gave you two options of what you wanted to do with it. For people who didn't necessarily wanted to, even if they didn't necessarily want to give it to Wiklo, you had the option of going to Rayari. If you wanted the items instead of the money, you go to Wiklo. So.
And there's a good chance Wiklo is just trading them right back to Rayari for
100%.
price.
Oh yeah.
As far as the stuff that we've seen in his menagerie, I can't even begin. There's no vowels in this person's name. Why does Wiklo have Tessa Bannister in a cryopod? Is that really Tessa? Is it a clone of Tessa?
That could be anybody with the first name starts with a T, ends in Bannister.
Mm-hmm. So it might not be Tessa. Is what you're not willing to confirm?
Could be Tanya Bannister.
Tanya Bannister.
So I actually had a reference. This is funny because it was on Captain's Table. Elliot showed up, which Elliot rarely does to the Captain's Table. I think it's because Red Monster was coming on. So Elliot showed up to talk to Red Monster and to Major Star Stuff and I, and mentioned specifically that Tessa Bannister was added as an Easter egg. That way he could get people to shut the fuck up to him about adding Tessa Bannister back in the game. Because he's like, I added her back. You just curled a monkey paw. You didn't tell me where. but I added her.
Here first. You're not willing to confirm that that's the
Confirm or deny.
Tessa.
Is this on record?
Yeah.
Oh, then no.
It's on the internet, and everybody knows you can't erase anything from the internet. I've tried. I once wore a Beefeater costume. Vla's Villainous, a longtime viewer in the chat, says nobody cares about NPCs. Give me my ships. So it's a prudent course of action. All right, so Regen Crisis, Wiklo's arrival. We've taken a break from the fight for Pyro at the moment. So let's we get back into that a little bit in this next Invictus patch. What's happening in Pyro with these three factions right now? Where are we at in their story at the moment?
Well, I guess just to fill in the fight for Pyro is we had the introduction of a new group called the Frontier Fighters, who have a different take.
I like the brain fart there. The reason why Will just brain farted is because Will, I believe, was one of the people who came up with all of the gangs, and there are like 36 gang names for Pyro. So Will probably just went, which one was the new one? Oh, fuck.
Take on the Pyro solution, right? Because we've established for a long time the Citizens for Prosperity, who are out there who are like, if we just resettle Pyro, we can turn it around. If there's more economic development here, then the UE will care more, then we'll get more resources, more funds, and we can make it safe.
If we just give Pyro to the corporations, everyone will be better. Just sell your soul to Hurston Dynamics. Please, we promise we won't eat it.
And in turn make the neighboring system safer. And that's their plan. And the Frontier Fighters are like, no, that's going to take too long. You've been trying to do this. All you're doing is sending resources in there that outlaws just steal. You're making the situation worse. Our solution is burn it to the ground. It's called Pyro, let's burn it up. And so they've come in here, and to kind of get the ball rolling, it turns out they pretended to be a Pyro outlaw group called the Slicers. They did a huge terrorist attack on the Stanton system. And then they're like, come on, everyone, let's get those Slicers, and trying to get the whole system agitated. Because they saw what happened when Xenothreat did their attack. They were like, this was good, but not good enough. Let's do it better. So
everything you need to know.
It was good, but it wasn't destructive enough. We didn't do enough terrorism. We need to just up the terrorism, all right? If we up the terrorism, maybe people would get more mad
About these people. the uber racists did a good job, but they didn't go far enough.
Well, as far as agitating Stanton into action, because Pyro is one of those problems that's so big that it feels easier to ignore. Like, so it's easy enough to be like, it's there, it's fine, and just deal with like, oh, we'll catch this one shipjacker, we'll catch this one outlaw, but it doesn't help the larger problem of an outlaw system.
So the big thing that's also important to put in context is that this is a post-Nexus invasion situation, where there was a similar system to Pyro called Nexus, which had a similar thing where Pyro had been overrun. It was an old corpo system run by Hathor, name you are now familiar with. And as you can tell, Hathor was kind of shit at their job and didn't do anything to preserve this system, which was called the Hathor system because they owned it. And then when they strip mined the whole place, they decided just to abandon it. And as they slowly abandoned the system, gangs began to come in and take over. Doesn't help that right next to Hathor, aka Nexus, is the Cathcart, where Spider is. So it's at the door of this huge, like, outlaw pirate haven. So Nexus became known as the Crossroads of Crime. And because of an incident where a single outlaw was able to go through like multiple systems, mostly through Nexus, and cause so much damage and havoc, called Keller's Run, it was such an embarrassment that the UEE had to do something to save face. So they decided to invade Nexus to neutralize Nexus. So they brought the Navy, the Marines, and the advocacy in, and they just basically just punched every outlaw they could find. And they said, they unfurled the banners, said mission accomplished, and they went the fuck home. Except for the advocacy, who stuck around to try to maintain the peace. But they did the thing that the frontier fighters, and not the frontier fighters, the Citizens for Prosperity were doing, which is they would come in, kill all the outlaws, and leave. But the thing that was the reason why the outlaws were there in the first place, like an old base, an old mining facility, whatever, was still there. So the outlaws eventually came back. New outlaws came in and took over the place because it was still a viable facility. So now the advocacy and the UEE is in a quagmire of a never-ending outlaw conflict in the Nexus system, because new hungry outlaw gangs come into the area to try to take over these abandoned places because they haven't fully secured them. So they're just dumping billions of credits into a fucking sinkhole, into a constant death spiral of a system. And so I'm sure, in at least narrative speaking, the UEE is like looking at Pyro and going, not my circus, not my monkeys. We tried this and we're still not fucking done with it. Absolutely not. Let the Citizens for Pyro deal with it. None of our business.
So how did the idea of the Slicers / Freedom Fighter, Frontier Fighters reveal come about?
I believe it was a conversation with design. They were basically looking for they had built this sort of series of missions that were supposed to kind of build up towards the release of Pyro system. And so there was that initial thing of the like, oh, you can pick from these 3, and then suddenly they wanted to make it shift to 2. So we had to kind of figure out, like, look at kind of their outline of how they want to do things and figure out like, all right, well, how can we phase it from 3 to 2? And, you know, basically kind of hit all of the markers that they needed to hit, and then tell a story that could be fun. That would sort of, again, the goal was, hey, Pyro's coming out. We want people to go to Pyro. So how do we incentivize people to go storming into Pyro? And it's been one of the things we'd actually years ago had talked about a similar thing for Xenothreat as well, of them taking over like the jump point station and then fleeing into Pyro. And so it was basically, the Navy gave you the go ahead to go in. So it was like a bunch of missions for players, but it's the same type of thing. Like, you know, figure out a storyline that would ultimately culminate with the invasion of Pyro. And so we sort of circled around this idea of the Frontier Fighters being a much more hardline version of CFP basically. And then, you know, and talking with design, kind of came up with this hook of turning them into the villains, basically. So turning Frontier Fighters into the bad guys, hence why you had to fall into CFP or Headhunters. And
I'm glad I asked that question because you answered exactly what I was hoping you were going to say.
Thank you.
This idea, looking at the questions in that thread, I think sometimes there's this idea that everything starts with narrative and everything, you know, it's like everybody else in the company has to do what you decide the story is, and that's not the case. It's not the case. This is a collaborative thing, and many people have a voice.
I've said this many times, and I'll continue to say it based off of what I understand, and I do not believe this is incorrect because this is what I've heard them from their mouths before. Star Citizen, narrative is one of the first teams to get input on anything, and they're the last team to get input on everything. Creators come up with a good idea, mission team, features team, AI, whatever. They come up with an idea, and they go to the narrative team. The narrative team goes, well, this could work if we do this, this, or this, or this. So there's sort of like a filter to sort of, let's take this and let's merge it into the lore and the universe a little bit better so it makes sense within the context of our game. And then they take that feedback and then they continue to work on it. And by the time they're done, then they give it to the narrative team and say, make it make sense in the game. And so then it's up to the narrative team to come up with like, okay, well, how can we do item descriptions? How can we do locations? How can we do the story arcs? There's like there needs to be like a bunch of things that need to be done before they actually get to that point. And that's really the process of making the lore. So the narrative team really isn't the boss of anything, which is kind of my problem, that I feel like CIG too often will just sort of say fuck the continuity and just do whatever they want to. Rule of cool over consistency. And I'm not saying like the lore has to be everything. It's like, that's not the case. It's just restrictions can breed creativity. And so having restrictions to keep everything within the context of what's already been created, because Squadron 42 is done. Like there's not going to make significant changes to the story of Squadron. So we already have some establishment of the storyline and the universe in Squadron 42, and CIG is going to have to make Star Citizen fit into that context. And if they don't, why? It's stupid. They have two different narratives for two different games that set in the same universe. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So
not me, or we'd have Jalopy, but other people have voices where we would like to do this, but that's something that happens quite a lot. Designers come and say, we would like to make this kind of content. We would like to do something like this. Can you help us find a way to fit that into the universe that you've created? And that's a big part of what you guys do day in and day out.
Yeah, like I just said.
So this question came from the chat, and it's in the Meyer was asking, Meyer, I thought better of you, man. Why can't we stay on the freedom fighters side? Why don't you let us be the genocidal terrorists who want to just wholesale slaughter thousands and thousands and thousands of innocent people?
Yeah, I mean,
Can I answer your own question?
yeah. The Frontier Fighters switching into a pure enemy faction, I know some people aligned with them and they wanted to keep working for them, but our idea was always to have them as an ongoing enemy faction for the rest of the story we're telling this year. And going forward, not every faction that you encounter in the game is going to be one that the players can actively work for. And they're these purely hostile factions. And we need them from gameplay reasons, is that as the reputation system slowly evolves, we want a similar experience for players who always can arrive in a location and have someone to attack or who is attacking them without having to worry about how the reputation system is going to change how they behave or the dialogue lines, because there's a high cost with that. We do want to have some reputation-based gameplay where the player's alignment will affect the outcome or how they experience these things.
Yes.
But that's going to be much more controlled.
It has to be within reason.
Yeah.
It has to be within technical reason, has to be within feature reason, has to be within time, the amount of time that we can invest into creating different variations. I mean, everybody that's ever played a video game that has branching storylines knows you can only have so many different branches and stuff. Otherwise, it just goes on and on and on. And it becomes impossible. I say that, and then Baldur's Gate 3 was like, hold my beer. Shout out to Baldur's Gate 3. But even there are limits, and that's like this. So it's limits in time, limits in technology, limits in functionality, and our own desires. We're not making a game where you can do absolutely every single thing in the universe. There's a game we learn every week, the game that we want to make. We evolve, Chris evolves, you guys evolve, we all have different ideas every week and whatever, and we start to think, this is the kind of game we want to make and stuff as we see players react and stuff like this. And it's not to say that maybe someday down the road you're not going to be able to join space Nazis or whatnot, but at this moment where we're at,
I don't say no.
That's my point. But at this moment where we're at, it's like, no, that's not something we're really looking for.
But again, going back to the sort of the conversation about the guilds that we outlined in sort of the Road to 1.0 thing, there's going to be a criminal guild. If you are looking for that type of, underworld working for the dark side type, characters and interactions and factions and stuff like that, we have that. You will be able to work for those people. But
you can be criminals. You can be criminals. You can be pirates and it's just it's just a question of how far into depravity we look.
An early version of the reputation system had a lot more factions that you're working for. They were going to be very localized so that as you traveled from planet to planet, you were starting to build your reputation up. And it turned out like that level of complexity wasn't delivering on the experience that we wanted. So we kind of have pared back so that the factions will ideally have larger differences from each other so that you're not just shuffling back and forth between like 20 identical delivery companies. Like for 1.0, we want each, company that you work for to have its own vibe, its own voice, and those are going to be the ones, and for you to grow along with them from system to system. So a lot of the factions that we previously thought was going to be Pyro only or Stanton only are going to expand out into the other systems, so you can have a continuous experience as you travel through the star systems. Like, you know, and so I think a part of that is kind of limiting who you're going to be able to grow that reputation with. We're going to have local factions and local people that you can still get paying jobs with and do small mission chains with, but you won't necessarily be earning a permanent reputation with them that's tracked and affects other people. So it's going to be a lot more focused and hopefully deliver a more in-depth experience for those factions that you do work with.
Was that, Jen, what we were talking about in terms of like what they, how factions were going to, or how reputation was going to work? Because this is, I'm glad that they're addressing this, because this is something that I had thought they were going to be doing, which was the idea that instead of having the Headhunters just be a Pyro faction, they're now going to be a Pyro faction and a Nyx faction and a Terra faction. And they were going to be doing like Ninetales will be more along the lines of the other things. They're dumbing it down. Yeah, they are dumbing it down. And I do think that's partially a bad call. I understand the reason why, and it's the reason why a lot of things are happening. The reason why the raft changed the way it is because CIG is looking at what they have right now and what they're going for with 1.0, and they're realizing that there are going to be some limitations with what they can and can't do. That's it. They're realizing there's limitations, and they're just going to say it's good enough and throw it out there. So there's going to be parts of this game which suck ass. And because CIG just doesn't care. So this isn't a game for everyone, but yeah. Dumbing down, not good. I mean, it will make sense. It's just the idea, there still needs to be consequences. That's my big thing about reputation. If there is no consequences to reputation, then there is no reason to have reputation. If it's only carrots and no sticks, then don't fucking do it. You need to have a consequence for choosing to work with the criminal syndicates. And if there's not, so this is them realizing they bit off more than they can chew back then. Yes. And everyone knew, even back in like 2015, 2016, that CIG was going to reach the point where they realize what they can and can't do and then come back. Or 2014, 2015. I remember seeing a video on someone talked about it and compared Star Citizen with Freelancer and kind of looked at Chris's experience and said, yeah, Star Citizen's coming out. Anyone who says scam's insane. Of course it's coming out, but it's going to happen like Freelancer, where instead of having this grand ambition that Freelancer had, it's going to end up releasing with a pared down version of what they had, and it's going to be good, but it's not going to be this amazing, ridiculous, off the wall thing that Chris keeps saying it is. I think that commentator was right and wrong. I think they were right in the sense that it was never going to reach insane levels, but I think they were wrong in the idea that they thought that Chris was going to back off a lot of stupid things he wanted to do, because he's still doing it. It's just paring down on the scope in terms of the size of the universe, at least for initial release. Faction hostility doesn't need full rep, in my opinion. We'll see if they do. I don't think they will. I think CIG is going to get everything to a good enough status, and then they're going to focus on content. We may see like a big sort of like 2.0 update at some point in Star Citizen, but I think CIG's main focus is just to get 1.0 out and then expand the content, the planets, the systems, the factions, the story, the ships, the weapons, the gear. But I don't think they're going to do a massive overhaul with all of the systems. Like, I don't think like what we have for mining isn't going to change. What we have for hauling isn't going to change. What we have right now isn't going to fundamentally change in the future. Like, flight is probably on its last iteration, though that is one of those things where they could probably change it a little bit more. But I don't think CIG has the manpower or the will to go in and completely rework a game system after 12 years of development. Especially after 1.0, which is probably going to be 15 years of development.
We've mentioned in the past, obviously we spent a long time talking about Pyro and stuff in the lead up. Hopefully Nyx ain't that long. Are the previous mentioned gangs of Pyro still intended to be there? Overlords, Fire Rats, the Vipers, stuff like that? Or have the Frontier Fighters and Headhunters just killed them all off?
I mean, it's an interesting idea to kind of run with the idea that, you know, Frontier Fighters
You can take away my
steamroll their way through
spaceship.
some of the other.
You can take away my space suit.
Suit.
You can even take away my space lasers.
No PPUs.
But you can never,
Never.
ever
Ever.
take away my space game.
MNKY Smash just resubscribed for 7 months. Some D.
Thank you so much there, Mickey Smash, for that 7 months of support. You're very important, Papa. Very impressive. You're very pedestrian. You rock. Shots and cheers, chat. Y'all shots and cheers.
You can take away my space suit. You can even take away
Of course, if the project wasn't in open development, we would have known this anyway. Yeah, but we also wouldn't have,
Never.
many people wouldn't have backed, myself
Ever.
included, if it wasn't in open development.
take away my space game.
The Janitor just resubscribed for 64 months. At Shempasta is a wee and a poo.
Thank you so much for that 6 months of support there, Darj. You're very important, Papa. Very impressive, Pennsylvania pedestrian. This is your fault. You're from drinking. Shots and cheers and chat. Y'all shots and
You
cheers.
can take away my spaceship.
Spaceship.
You can take away my space suit.
Suit.
You can even take away my space lasers.
No pew-pews.
But you can never,
Never.
ever
Ever.
take away my space game.
Captain_Fishty just resubscribed for 13 months.
Thank you so much for that 13 months of support there, Captain Fishsticks. You're very important, Papa. Very impressive, Pennsylvania pedestrian. This is your fault. You're drinking night. Shots and cheers and chat. Y'all shots and cheers. Yeah, and CIG would have not had nearly the number of pledges they have now if it wasn't for open development. Thank you all. Thank you all.
The other gangs and
But to also address for simplicity's sake, for like what Jin's saying, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think simplifying it isn't a bad thing. It's just a matter of streamlining it to the point where it's easier to follow. Having, what are they? They have like 4 big guilds, and then inside the guilds there can be sub factions which are going to be competing against each other. Makes a lot more sense than having 300 different guilds that they have to follow the storylines for, because they want these guilds to be bouncing off of each other all the time. So almost done.
and wipe them out. Again, it's usually that thing too of what you were talking about before, of everything kind of to build the experience that we like, or the standard of quality that we like to ascribe to stuff. You know, adding those gangs requires support. It requires costumes, it requires voice packs ideally, it requires ship liveries, it requires a lot of stuff that requires other teams to get involved in. So it's, you know, that's why we usually make the distinction.
Yeah, it's
whenever we're kind
1.25.
of, talking with on this or in the forums and stuff like that is, you know, there's a distinction between the fictional universe and the in-game universe. In the fictional universe, they're probably out still running around, but whether they're represented in the game yet, right now we're not really at a place where we can support putting them in.
But as far as like, you know, down the road, we have plenty of narrative room to have them show up and start having an outpost dedicated to them. And I think it's about, now we've had the character art time so that they have really cool bespoke armor that makes me want to go engage with them and loot them. And right now we just don't have that in the schedule.
I mean, you kind of see it like with the fire rats and the contested zones, like kind of how unique they can look. Like the work that they did on that, you know, was really awesome and shows basically where it could go. But yeah, but I do like the idea of actually saying that, you know, maybe we fictionally kill off one of the gangs that Frontier Fighters gets a hold of them and stomps them out.
It's also hard because we're dancing around a lot of things because of what's coming later this year. And so like it's like you know, it's been the struggle of these kind of shows for, you know, more than a decade now. We want to share, but we don't want to spoil. And especially this year. This year has been a big focus on in-game discovery. probably more than any previous year, and that's affected everything from ISC to SEL. It's why there are fewer shows. It's why we don't spoil every single thing. In 2 weeks, you're going to see the show about 411, and there's some rather sizable things in that show that we're leaving out because again, we want folks to discover it in game. We don't want to. It's I think a lot of folks.
I think CIG just reached a point where they have to make the game with what they have got. Yes, that's my point. What we have right now in terms of the completed systems are not going to be overhauled. The stuff that they've talked about that they've been working on, those things will be part of the completed systems. The stuff that comes out for the next overhaul for combat and flight, that's going to be it. We're done. They're done with that after it's released. After it's released and tweaked. They'll probably tweak some things here and there, but CIG is at the point of it needs to get done because it needs to be in a good enough shape so that when 1.0 comes, it's done. It's in a place that other teams that are building other stuff for 1.0 can then latch on to it. And that means a lot of sacred cows are going to get slaughtered because they have to kill your babies. It's a term used a lot in other media, but I read a book on like how to write video games, like video game writing and how it works. And like literally the second chapter of that book was kill your babies, because it's like you have to know when to fight for your story ideas and when to just let them go, because things are going to change rapidly in development. And sometimes things need to change drastically to make it make sense, to meet with timelines. You have to cut some features, other things. So yeah. He's making it seem like something incredible is coming at the end of the year. Don't know what he's talking about, but he's setting expectations kind of high. I don't think he's setting expectations kind of high. I think people are, as typical. You can't go, we're making this cool plan for this storyline. You should come check it out versus like, we're going to tell you exactly what the story is and let you decide for yourself if it's good or not. There's clearly a story arc that they're telling. And I think someone earlier says they don't seem like they know what they're doing. I know they know what they're doing. From what I can gather, they definitely have a plan. It's just, they don't know if it's going to be good or not. For a company that took so long to get this point, it's disappointing and actually a bit annoying how much stuff is being scaled back or delayed until much later after 1.0. I mean, I can get that. I understand that. But it's also, we were going to have this conversation sooner rather than later. A lot of things expanded on being made. The level of detail in planets and crafting building have been increased once introduced. Will have increased once introduced. Yeah, we're going to see that as well. So, but you're always going to have that situation, Toha. There was always going to be a point, and I think the honest to God answer is, and CIG can shut me up whenever they want to. CIG's management team are cowards. They were cowardly, and they've been too worried about the funding spigot being turned off and not worried about the game itself for too long. Because, and you can see it in how they handle PR releases, Aaron Roberts, Chris Roberts, and other managers, and come out and talk. They'll always try to couch everything in terms of, well, don't worry, we're doing this to improve productivity or to have more things come out. But then they'll also tell you the real reason. Like, for instance, the reason why they had staggered development. They said, oh, this will eventually speed up release, or this will speed up releases, which it has since its release, speed up how releases will function. But that wasn't its intentional incentive. It wasn't the reason it was created in the first place. The reason why staggered development happened was because they were burning out their fucking staff, because they were hard pushing and crunching for 3 months straight. And that was killing people, and people were leaving, and they were losing institutional knowledge. So instead, they changed that cycle from 3 to 6 to 9 months, and that let them have more time. It let people take fucking vacations and take time off to do other things, or for other things to come up. But they couldn't say that because they were afraid that if they said that, people would say, we don't give a fuck about your human beings who are working for you. We care about this game which you promised was going to be out in X number of days, and it's not. So fuck you and fuck your people, do your fucking jobs. And like, that's the situation. So yeah, but so part of it is like, yeah, like I understand that, but it's also, there's lots of times when CIG should just man the fuck up and said what they were supposed to say. and be honest about things. And they haven't. And that's the problem. You set these expectations. You keep kicking that can down the road. When time comes to pay the bill that you've been pushing away, it's going to suck. And we're at that point where it's going to suck. I'm starting to reconsider future ship purchases. This new size is not worth $1,500 per large ship. You should have never purchased ships that are $1,500, honestly. All right, let's continue.
Sometimes, I shouldn't say a lot of folks, but some folks sometimes forget that the product of CIG is not these shows. The product of CIG is the game, and whatever these shows just support and inform about it, but this is not, it's...
I just want to say, I really feel for all the people who've been following along with the lore that we've been releasing for the past, decade, and seeing our development in real time, and they've always been representative of our thoughts at the time and our aspirations of the time. But we've changed, we've grown, and we've learned stuff. So at one point, we were going to have all these gangs, and we developed them because that was what the idea was at the time. And now, as we learned, it's like, oh, we want less better gangs, and so we've trimmed pared down to fit into that schedule, or we know how much developer resources it takes to do it to our quality now, and we've had to adjust it. That's not to say that they're cut or gone, they just might not be showing up in the way they've come. And we talk about this with the location lore, having to adjust and change to our new tech, and so I appreciate how difficult it is to be a Star Citizen lore fan and being like, wait, I thought it was this, and then like you told me these gangs were down here doing stuff, and I don't see them. So I know it's tough.
Plot C4 says, so without spoiling, Squadron 42 is not for this.
Thank you. Well, thank you. It is rough. But I never, this is going to sound weird, but I personally have never been involved in Star Citizen lore for the details. It's always been for the big picture stuff because of what the game is going to be. And I've always been of the proponent of like, it's cool to have lore in terms of story writing. Put it in the fucking game. All right, people, it's a video game. Let people enjoy your story in the game, but, 10% of the dream, we have more POIs than we've ever supposed to make. Yeah, I mean, Star Citizen is more detailed than it was originally pitched to be, but it's also less detailed in some cases as well. It's more generified, I guess you could say. There's definitely more generified. Generic. It's losing some of its uniqueness to gain other uniqueness, which it didn't have before, which is the topic of the next Captain's Table, which is what happened to my space game, where, a lot of people are upset that Star Citizen is no longer the game that they thought it was. And a lot of people are blaming the first-person shooter aspect, the FPS has become the game. This is no longer Star Citizen. This is escaped from Starkov. This is just trend chasing the video game rather than being any kind of ideal. I'm not getting this game that you were pitched to me originally. And to a degree, that's true. We're not getting 100 star systems. We're not getting Freelancer 2. We're getting more in some cases, but we're getting less. So, and that's the discussion. We're going to have Space Tomato, we're going to have HC Vertigo, and we're going to have Radar Ranger on to talk a little bit about that. So.
This year. No, it's not. We said that at CitizenCon last year.
2026?
It's not 2025. All right, so we got a little bit more time here. I want to do some rapid fire general questions here.
This is different than the lightning round?
Yeah, this one's you can actually answer. Why do criminal groups like to live in piles of trash?
It was a good thing. I think it's a strong visual indicator to players that they're entering an area that's seedy and unwelcoming is to see trash littering around. I think a lot of times when you're fighting for your life, you maybe have more important things to worry about than picking up your protein bar wrapper.
Yep.
So,
sorry, Vlaz is like, but what quarter of 2026? When it's ready. How come gangs manage to borrow so many large military ships like the Idris every year? These manufacturers should fire their heads of security.
Well, I mean, just like how many Polaris's are flying around right now.
But yes, they should. Their security system is truly horrible.
Has the role of head of security even been invented? Like, does it exist in the Star Citizen? Is there some fictional reason?
They're
Security
just all
chiefs?
really gullible. They just walk in and they're like, "Hey, I'm supposed to take that ship out." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And just
There's some suspension of disbelief that needs to happen. To like, how many times will Orison be taken over and sieged before they would just shut the city down? So it's
Yeah. Okay. So
we
that
got
was
a lot of focus on the
that was the one thing I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? What they're saying is the assault on Stanton, or I should say the like Xenothreat invasion of Stanton has happened like 7 times. But in lore, we have a definitive date when it happened. Even though players have played it multiple times, the narrative is only once. Jumptown Wars happened over the course of several months, and that's still in the lore. But like Siege of Orison has only happened once. We're not talking about like that's why they're moving away from those sorts of things. Yeah, they could have hand waved it better, but that's what they're trying to say. And them joking about, well, yeah, they should have fired him. It's like almost certainly that's kind of the point. Welcome to the Star Citizen universe where nothing is fucking good. Why do they get all these fucking capital ships? Because people are bad. There's just the UEE is falling apart. It's literally a declining empire. It's the end of the Roman Empire. All right, shit's bad. People are just taking shit because they can take it, which is cool. Honestly, give me a mission where I have to steal an Idris from a UEE dry dock for the Nine Tails or whatever. Like fuck it, do it. Give me that heist mission.
Games recently. This person would like to ask if you plan to focus on each of the 4 standard corporations a little more and their stuff.
sure, no comment.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Hold up. That's going to leave more. And this person would like to ask if you plan to focus on each of the 4 Stanton corporations a little more and their stuff.
Sure, no comment.
Oh.
Okay. That's going to lead. I'm going to go right into the next question. We have introduced relatively recently, within the last 6 months.
I mean,
Foxwell.
everything's relative.
Yeah. Foxwell is now, this new. I guess they're a PMC. Is that how you would classify them?
I would call them a security company. I don't think they're solid enough to be a PMC.
Okay. So Foxwell is out there now giving missions. They seem to be taking some of the role that Crusader and Hurston Security would have in the past. Is that accurate? What's?
Yeah, it's part of our 1.0 alignment as we head towards that goal of. For the major landing zones, it was causing potential issues for players to be able to earn negative rep with these companies and seeing how, like, I worked for Crusader Security, I pissed them off, like, I attacked them. What does that mean for me accessing the content in Crusader now? And it had a lot of like knock-on ramifications of, it was really complicating things, having the 4 corporations who control these planets also be reputation factions. So we're going to slowly start changing towards them being more local factions where you can work for them and earn money for them sometimes, but not necessarily keep a long-term reputation with them. Instead, those beginning security jobs are going to be given out by Foxwell. And sometimes the 4 corporations hire Foxwell as a contractor to do the work for them.
And Foxwell, because they're not so obviously linked to the Stanton system, like you talked earlier about being able to continue your relationships with some of these people as you progress to different systems. Again, at CitizenCon, we revealed the first 5 systems. After Pyro is Nyx, after Nyx is Castra. I remember that right?
Yeah.
And then after Castra, Terra. So a relationship with Crusader when you're in Castra doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense. But Foxwell is somebody that you can build a relationship with and they can take with you as you progress.
Yeah, that was one of the one of the earlier ideas was like, oh, you're going to have to rebuild your reputation. And we kind of decided that's not what we're gearing for. So we want that reputation to have continuation across systems. So yeah, you start working in Foxwell in the Stand system and you'll be able to continue working for them in Castra and Terra and stuff like that until you graduate up to a higher tier of security company who wants to work with you now. So.
Okay.
I don't like that. I don't like the idea that you can't have negative reputation. Personally, I'm of the opinion that there should always be some form of reputation, things like outlaws and criminals, so that you will have consequences for your actions you can earn back through trust, through work, and other things like that. But also negative reputation with outlaws in the same way, whereas the outlaws, instead of having negative reputation, instead of it like being like, well, we have to let you in because it's illegal to discriminate against you, but we don't have to fucking like you. The outlaws say it's not illegal for us to discriminate you because you pissed us off, But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. That's sort of the issue of more like streamlining. I know what they're doing. What they're doing is there are different tiers of mission givers or of mission companies, and each tier is a specific level. And once you've reached a specific level, you will then get recommended to another. It's basically their old idea, what they said before with mission givers, only it's now more generic. So it's over the course of multiple systems rather than a single one. That's the simplification factor there. I get that, but I don't like the idea of not having negative reputation with organizations, because you should be able to be told to fuck off at a landing zone. Like, just, fuck you. No, we don't like you. We don't have to service you. You can go back into the space station.
Have we seen the last of Xenothreat?
Probably not. They are like a bad penny.
They are a bad penny. Last two questions.
They're still going to have opposing companies' factions, right? So surely if you have a rep with one, you won't like the other, and the other use facilities or whatever. They've moved away from that, basically, is what they're saying. It's going to be more generic. So it's going to be like the guilds, and the guilds are going to be the ones that are going to have connections to each other and negatives with each other. So it's no longer going to be, I worked with Hurston. Hurston doesn't like Crusader, so Crusader doesn't like me. They're making it simpler so it's not as like scary for new people. If my local grocery store can tell me to fuck off, the characters in Star Citizen should be able to as well. No, the fucking landing zone should be able to do so. Also, I thought reps built like that was going to be the limiting factor on where unlawful players could go. Yeah, exactly. But I think they're trying to move that over to just the criminal system, which I personally think is still awful and needs to be revamped. But, I'm not making Star Citizen, so.
Why aren't there more non-combat focused storylines? So again, we've only been introducing this new story initiative just started this year.
Yeah.
And we're still in the 4th month of this year. So it's not like we've,
Well, technically, even
We're almost 2/3 of the way done, or not 2/3. We're over 1/3 of the way done with the year, though, Jared. There's only 12 months in a year. So yeah, we're 1/3 of the way done with the year. It's like, oh, we're only 4 months. Yeah, we're 1/3. We don't have that much, and of those months, December you might as well just piss it away, and November you might as well piss it away. So we actually only have 6 months left, and 2 of those months are in summer, where you piss away those months as well. So we really are halfway through.
been started, I think, two months. I think we're month 2 of the storyline.
I would say with the start of Pyro and stuff like this, with the fight for Pyro and stuff. So we're really only 4 or 5 months into this initiative here.
Well,
but the missions have all been very combat. The story has been very combat focused. Even a line in mine, the regen question thing. The first thing you do is go to a big central sandbox where you're forced to fight with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the from a high level, actually, the B story, the science story, the regen crisis story, is actually the non-combat one, because it's science, it needs resources and and the frontier fighters one, which is sort of the A story, that is obviously much more focused around combat. So, but within each of them, obviously, there's going to be opportunities to do both combat and non-combat. I mean, again, like, I think a lot of the systems for combat have already been sort of proven out. So I think that they're from, you talk to the mission team, but I think they're a bit easier to set up. So it's faster to iterate on a lot of adding a lot of combat stuff versus just mining stuff. But as far as I understand it, like the hope is that we want to have
There are probably a few gameplay edge cases they don't want to engineer around. I think you'll be able to have negative ref with some orgs, but not necessarily the core ones. From the sounds of things, it sounds like they're more focusing on playability. They don't want players to accidentally fuck up their rep and then not be able to access certain systems. But you know what I had to say about that? Fuck those players. Fuck them kids. Like, it's okay to do systems like that, which hard lock you or soft lock you out of a system because you didn't learn the fucking game. You don't always have to take someone's hand and lead them by the way. I think there should be a hand-holding phase where people learn how to play the game and learn the consequences, almost like a mini campaign of a couple of hours to sort of get players into what Star Citizen is, what the universe is, what you're supposed to do, how to play it. But once that's done, you should be, the handhold should come off, and they just say, good luck. And if the first thing you do once the handholds comes off is face plant right into the dirt, consequences, bitch. Like, there needs to be that, because that adds more bite, that adds more realism, and adds more interest in the game. How many games have released recently where those sorts of consequences are permanent? Now, most of them have been single-player games, mind you, but that's just where CIG can innovate in this level. Like, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, you can fuck up so hard you get branded multiple times for doing bad things. You can hard lock or soft lock the fucking game in Baldur's Gate 3. Like, this isn't an Elder Scrolls title. You know, this isn't Fall. You don't have to be like everything. And I think people, when they signed up to play Star Citizen in the first place, liked that edge. People today still talk about Star Citizen in terms of liking it because it's sort of like takes the keys, throws it at your face, and say, good luck, don't fucking die. Like, there's a charm to that. There is a problem with that because it causes more people to like bounce right off the game. But so you definitely need to have some hand holding, but there still needs to that moment where they hand you the keys and it's like your consequences. This is your universe. You're going to experience consequences. How do you can even get hung in KCD2? Yeah. How do they do that without immediately triggering a riot because people made the wrong choice, like the Freedom Fighters? Don't make shitty like decisions like the Freedom Fighters. Not just players, like the players. Like I have pitched the idea multiple times of how to fix that problem with the Freedom Fighters is to personally fuck over the players. To have the players be told that if you play these different factions, you can get these rewards. And then you chose a faction, and that faction then actively fucks you over in game, and then you get fucked over mechanically. And so people say, well, this is fucked up. It's like, yeah, well, actions have consequences. And if the Frontier Fighters actively fucked over the players, like basically like prevented them from getting reputation or money or something, where players like maybe not even maybe like the skins, like they were just sort of like a trick to you, fuck off, then would it be shitty and people get mad? Yeah, but it would also teach players there are consequences to your actions. Not everyone is a good actor in this universe. Even if you want to work with them, sometimes you're going to get fucked over. And will there be riots? Sure. But I also think there would be a lot more people who are like, okay, I am learning my lesson here. This is a universe where people are dicks and they will fuck you hard. So if you don't want to get fucked, wear some protection or become more wary about the universe around you because it's a dangerous fucking place. The region that has this item Wiklo wants is locked for you. Sorry. Yeah, like there needs to be some sort of, well, fuck off moments in the game, because those also happen in not only in real life, but in narrative consequences all the time. How many stories have you read or watched where the hero or heroes reach the point where they get the MacGuffin, they get the big thing, they're almost there to achieve the goal, and then the rug gets pulled out and they get fucked. And they're just like, you know, congratulations, I was actually the bad guy. And other moments like that, where even you as the viewer are like, fuck you, fuck this guy, I fucking hate them. Or like, oh, fuck, oh God, everything's gone, we're gonna die. Like there needs to be that. Yeah, same to say they're wussing out on blocking you out on locations as SCL. It feels real disappointing stuff there. That's been kind of the problem. Red Wedding is a great example. Yeah. Yeah, well, they can walk away with shitty consequences if they can communicate that in the game, you know, better than they did, or like at all. That's the thing. It needs to be in the game. And I guarantee you that if a faction actively told a player to go fuck themselves after a player helped them, if they made it fucking personal, like actively personally insulted the player, the faction did, in a way that like hurt them, money, reputation, skins, I think the skins would have been a big one, that players would have gotten mad, but they would have also been mad at the faction, not necessarily CIG, because that's sort of the point of the story. I wouldn't go, Lobster, let's not jump over the fucking cliff here. CIG's not saying your actions don't matter. It's just that they're trying to lessen the amount of punishment players are going to get for having actions that would specifically prevent them from locking them out of a location, which I understand to a degree, but I still don't like it as an overall philosophy. Get high enough in a rep to be told you're not getting the ship you're working, but then unlocks a chance to join an enemy faction to gain the ship. Exactly. Or it gives you a place where you can go, where you can join another faction that unlocks that kind of stuff. For example, council's supposed to steal ships, but the Navy say, "Fuck you! I'm not selling you the military ships. Go steal one if you can." Yeah, something like that. I'd make it a personal mission to glass every outpost of theirs if it happened. And that's what I mean. Like, if CIG wrote it and put it in the game, where it was like clear that there was some shady shit going on, but you ignored it because it was like, they're not going to fuck me over. And then they fucked you over. And you went, I got fucked over. I am such an idiot. You'd feel bad because you got fucked over and you saw it coming. You're like, God damn it. But then you'd want to carpet bomb them. Then you'd want to make it your mission to go out of your way. You would hurt yourself in order to hurt them in game. How do I know this? Because I've seen this happen in real life. I've read about this in history, and I've seen this in plenty of like video games. I've experienced myself. There's a moment in Mass Effect, I think 2, I was doing a playthrough live on stream like years ago. And I was playing this FemShep because everyone's like, play FemShep, because I've always played it as male Shep, and everyone says FemShep is better, and FemShep is better. In my opinion, female Shepherd is the canon Shepherd, because she is so much more dynamic than the male Shepherd. She's much more lively. It feels much more like as if it was written for her first, and then sort of the male was kind of tacked on afterwards. I don't think that was the case, but it feels like that often. It's just because I forgot the actress's name. She's just so goddamn good. Jen Taylor? Is that it? There's a moment in there where another character called my character a stupid bitch. And I personally was like, I'm going to murder you. Like it wasn't like they were calling my character a stupid bitch. I felt like they were calling me a stupid bitch. And I was like, this is it. I am personally going to fucking murder your ass, because the writing had done so well that it didn't feel like I was being fucked over by this other character. It felt like that Shepard was being fucked over by this character. It felt like I was being fucked over by the character. Jennifer Hale, thank you. Dexter's Deshaun betrayal in Cyberpunk is a good example. If you didn't know that was going to happen, it can feel personal as fuck. And you can do it. Like, people don't blame CD Projekt Red for Dexter Deshaun. That's just because it's part of the story. They blame Dexter Deshaun. They do it in Elder Scrolls Online and Oblivion. It's done. Like, if you do it right, there will always be players who complain. But I do feel like people would understand it if they put it into the game. And that's the key. Maelstroms and the scavs and what they did to Elizabeth, yeah. So, like, I've personally experienced that experience in gaming So I know other people would have that experience. If they had set it up so that the Frontier fighters were telling you all of these things and hyping you up, but there was always that little thing behind them where they would call you they would refer to you as something with like a bite, like contractor. He's just one of those contractors, like, or a temp. He's one of our temps. Like some sort of key of being like, why do you keep calling me different from everybody else around here? What's me different from your buddy who you're talking to right now? Why am I a temp? The fuck do you mean I'm a temp? I'm fucking killing people for you. What the fuck, asshole? But you do it because the money is good or because you know that the skin looks cool. And then at the end, they're like, sorry, temp, nothing personal, but this is business now. And then you just find out that they got fucked. You got fucked. And it's like, well, I was going to get these skins, right? And CIG says, no, we aren't. You were never going to get these skins. These skins exist, but not for you. They were never going to do that. But you said, we didn't say shit. We just said these are some options you could get. You'll get some rewards. And then it turns out that you can get those skins, but you have to continue through the story, and you have to then go through some sort of process to, like, you have to go into UE space and talk with somebody, and they'll say like, okay, well, we got these skins for these designs for these paint jobs, which you can now get if you help us out, because now you have to do sort of a mea culpa. You have to do a little bit of self-flagellation to prove that you're not actually a bad guy. You got fucked over too, and then they help you out. So it's still part of the storyline, and you still kind of get your skins. But there's a moment where you just, the stomach drop, and you're like, fuck these assholes. Fuck all of them. And then you go for that. It's entirely possible to do that. And CIG could if they weren't cowards. That's the key.
Like a very nice balance between the two, that if you don't want to fight, you don't have to fight.
Supply or die, which was kind of a refrain from that A story, a little denouement where you take a break and we introduce things, that could be done completely without combat. You were able to mine your way to completion and get all the rewards, or salvage your way to completion. Now, what other players allow you to do, that is the universe that we're making. But it was not exclusively combat oriented. There was a path for combat, a path where you could avoid it. I think we'll see more of those things as we go on, providing alternate paths to things.
The other thing I was going to say is, you brought that up, Aimless, was that the problem with Frontier Fighters isn't that people wanted to continue with them. It's that they didn't understand why they couldn't continue with them, because they didn't feel personally attacked by Frontier Fighters. It's just like the Frontier Fighters just got fucked over. I worked with them. They like me. They would want me to hire me again. There's no reason for that clean split. And that's one of the reasons why I bring it up, because there needs to be a clean split where the player and the faction split. And you're like, oh, it's like, yeah, people want to fight for Xenothreat, but it's okay to have a Xenothreat just to tell you, no, you're not one of us. It's okay to have a faction that's just like, no, not at all. You're not one of the chosen people. You're an outsider. Get the fuck out of here, outsider. You're not part of the tribe. You're not us. You're them, and we're going to kill them. This could be story-driven stuff to be a delay while the crafting and stuff work. I would give the two shits about story content when I can create my own crafting and logistics behind it. I disagree that I think story content is going to keep Star Citizen mostly relevant in people's brains, because the universe has to have some sort of narrative. It can't just be a sandbox. If this was just going to be a sandbox, it should have just been a single player arc game. It should just be, I don't think you would have gotten nearly as many people if you just said, oh yeah, this is just going to be space engineers, but with a universe where you populate it. Because we saw that with games like, what was it called? It was very similar to Star Citizen in terms of how they're doing their server mesh. It was all like you could build your own cities and all those sorts of things, and it sort of fell apart. But yeah. No, I get it. Dual universe, yeah, thank you. Dual universe is what you're talking about there, Laughing Tank, and I think that proves that it's not viable. There needs to be a reason why people are in the universe, and that story content has to be there to bring those people back. Do you believe that if narrative and lore get too simple, it'll lead to the game becoming a generic PvP game with a poor PvE background? It could, but I don't think the simplification is a bad thing as long as they add characters. That's my big push, my big like desire for CIG at this point is to add characters to the game. Because if you can add characters that characterize these factions, that will bring back the complexity that people want. Because you don't want 7,000 factions. You want a reason to give a fuck about a faction. Like, you don't care about the hi-hats. I care about the hi-hats, but you don't give a shit about the hi-hats because you never fucking heard about them before I just mentioned them. There were a Pyro gang that existed for a while. You know, the only person who has investment in time into the Drop Kings is Tree 0311. Because Tree 0311 is the only one who actually looked into the Drop Kings. What you want is a reason to care about a faction. You want a sacrifice of Cade 6 moment. You want I'm trying to think of another good example of this. You want you know, last stand of noble team moment. You want the sacrifice of Eris moment. You know, you want the you want a moment where you feel invested in what you're doing for a group. That's really the key. Simplification isn't the issue. The issue is simplification for the sake of simplification without the benefits of simplification, which is to effectively have a completely new, to have an ability to connect with groups in a way that you can track.
Things as the regen crisis continues, there will no doubt be opportunities for some major combat and stuff, but there will be also ways to contribute that are not. Last question. Just looking through the list here. No, two. I'm going to do two. Can I do two more? I know I said I'd get you out of here early, and I failed at that miserably. What are the Tavarin up to right now?
Hey, Tavarin.
Just chilling. Like, hanging out in their nest.
I mean, still, the two main storylines that we've talked about in the past is kind of, they're at a bit of a crossroads right now. And where there is a community of Tavarin who've left the UEE to kind of form a new Tavarin homeworld and try to reestablish their culture and really embrace those roots. And then there is a new kind of Tavarin movement about taking their culture.
Yeah. Don't take me the wrong way, laughing. Crafting and those things are important, and they're important parts of it. Crafting and base building and those things are still valuable parts of the game, and they add more at all. They don't take away from the game. But what I'm saying is that, like, there's no one part of the game that's going to make this game good. All of it needs to be there because that's how you get a game that makes sense. Like, I'll use an example of Titanfall. Titanfall 1 and 2 are good, not because they're just good games, but because all of the elements of those games are really well balanced. They're practiced. They obviously were not developed as the same idea. Like, the idea in Titanfall of like the advanced movement systems and like the wall running and stuff was clearly one of the parts of the story, and the gunplay and the gun balance and the gun designs was another parts, and the giant stomping robots was another part. So all of these three different parts were separate, and then they sort of, once they built them out, they kind of figured out how to mesh these parts together. You take any of those parts away from Titanfall, you do not have the same formula. Apex Legends is a great example of that. You take the Titans out of Titanfall, and you just leave with the movement to a degree and the gunplay. You have Apex Legends, which is fine, but it's not Titanfall, and it doesn't have the same sort of slavishly loyal community that Titanfall has. There are two very separate stories and communities. Like, there are people who like Apex Legends who do not give a fuck about Titanfall, and a lot of people who give a lot of shit about Titanfall who do not give a fuck about Apex Legends. And that's a great example. So, like, Star Citizen needs crafting. It needs base building. It needs good ship gameplay. It needs all of the gameplay loops. But if it's lacking the story on top of that, then it's just another space game. It's just another dual universe. It needs that story. It needs the connections. It needs all of these things to be put in there. Now, not everyone's going to like those things, but those things being in the background will hopefully improve the experience of everyone around them.
Sure, and assimilating into the UE and finding their new place as UE citizens, and fight for their status of equality and really having a place in it.
Like genuinely going, hey, we're going to make a real effort of, we're part of this, we've been a part of the UE for a while now, like let's really, make a go of it and stuff. And so yeah, it's the two of them kind of at odds with each other.
And I think this kind of desire, now that the war is so long past, of returning Tavaran culture back into the mainstream with Asperia's release of these Tavaran fighter ships and other forms of Tavaran culture, which were now being revitalized. It's kind of an interesting way of a combination of humanity and Tavarans working together to bring back these elements of Tavaran society that were lost. Yeah.
I've wanted the Tavaran eventually in game primarily because I've always wanted to dress my Star Citizen character like Brian Blessed in Flash Gordon, as a Hawkman.
No, I'm very excited to when we finally get around to Tavaran, because they're my favorite group.
And then the last question I want. We've talked a lot about, obviously.
There's 2 more questions.
You know what? You want a show? You've hosted this show before. You're the only other person that has hosted the show. You want to switch seats? We've talked a lot about, obviously, story and narrative and stuff.
Hopefully.
And the limitations that we have as far as how we can tell stories and stuff like this. We are making some progress with that this year. We do recognize that while data pads will always be they're a part of every video game, every major story narrative video game I think I've played in the last 20 years. We do want to progress that more. Can you give us a preview of how we're progressing? What would be next?
Just moving up the food chain. It's audio logs. Ultimately we want to get to be able to do video logs, like all that stuff. Because again, like it's the data pads are great because they're easy, they're relatively cheap. But again, part of the thing with this year has been creating greater engagement, and one of the main methods for doing that is having characters that you're interacting with. And so even if it's a one-sided thing, as far as an audio log or a video log or something like that, it's still you're reacting to a.
Thank you. What I was just saying. Thank you, Dave. Fuck. Characters, man. That's what it is. And the thing is I started to think this way because I have my discussion with Dave Haddock a couple of years ago that I sat down and had an interview with him, which was Dave is a horror fan. He loves horror. He's a big fan of horror movies and media and stuff like that. And the thing about horror media is that horror media lives and dies on its characters. Concepts are neat, but the best horror media has good characters. Why is Alien such a good movie? Because it has good characters that you can relate with, that you want to see survive, and also has various motivations. Also, there's a giant fucking alien killing everybody. But it's a monster slasher movie with good characters. You want to see characters survive. You get tense when things happen. The Thing is another good example of that. You want to see who's doing what.
Take away my spaceship.
So characters are so important to horror that I know that they're going to be important in Star Citizen for the same reason. So that you can have investment in those characters.
Ever take away my space game.
Sammy_G11 has subscribed.
Hey, Sammy G, thank you so much for that Twitch Prime sub. You're a very important pub, a very impressive pisser of any pedestrian. This is Faulty Return for good night. Shots and cheers and chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. So yeah, like I've been on my soapbox plenty of times about this, but if you've played Destiny, you know who Cade 6 is. I haven't played much Destiny at all. Cade 6 is still a character you care about. Sergeant Johnson in the Halo series is iconic for the reason, not because Sergeant Johnson is like super important. I mean, they are, but Sergeant Johnson is iconic because they're in all 3 Halo games. They have a lot more, like Johnson's a lot more character driven and character, like more of a character than the Chief ever is. Cortana, same thing. Mason in the original Call of Duty Black Ops. Fuck, I think it's Reznov is his name, if you remember. He's in fucking Call of Duty World at War as well as Black Ops. Like, people really love Victor Reznov. The tragic story of Arthas, Jaina Proudmoore, Thrall, all of these characters are what people glom onto in video games. Like, Doom Guy is an interesting character when you figure out what the Doom Guy is all about. You don't play Doom for the characterization, but he sure as hell helps you care more about it as you learn more about him. Joel and Ellie from Last of Us. Would you care about Cade 6 if Nathan Fillion wasn't voicing him? Maybe not. But I mean, it's kind of like, would you care about Darth Vader if it wasn't voiced by James Earl Jones? Didn't have that James Earl Jones voice. You know? Carmine and Gears. Just in case Doom Guy doesn't equal Doom Slayer. Doom Slayer, Doom Guy, yeah. You know, would you care about... So it's like characters and actors are sometimes the same thing. You know? Like, would you care as much? Yeah, no, yeah. It's the same, like, sort of thing. Like, how much of Cade 6 is because you're like Nathan Fillion, and how much of Cade 6 is unique? And I think Cade 6 is unique. Cade 6 isn't just Nathan Fillion, but it's voiced by Nathan Fillion. And I think that's important as well. Like, and I can show you in Star Citizen how that's casing. They just talked about Tessa Bannister in here for a long time. The reason why people like Tessa Bannister is because she was quirky, because she was interesting. Nobody knows who the fuck plays Tessa Bannister. I don't even really know who the actress was who played Tessa Bannister. But people cared about her because of the way she was written and the way she was directed.
2 words. Distress bacon.
How about Andy Serkis and Gollum, right? Do you like Gollum because it's played by, he's played by Andy Serkis? They're the same character, the same thing. You can't extract these two. Like, even though I think James Earl Jones is dead, I believe. Rest in peace. But even if he's gone, anyone who plays Darth Vader in terms of that style is going to end up using his voice because they have to. All right, let's continue on.
A person rather than just reading text on the screen.
Folks have already seen with Wiklo, comms calls are coming back. You know, you're starting to see some visuals, comm calls, and people being able to talk to you and deliver some exposition. Mm-hmm. Folks who are playing 411 on PTU now know there's elements of that creeping into 411 as well, with some of the new mission content that's available in 411, where we're able to have these comm calls come and talk to you. You just mentioned audio logs. I think I'll go ahead and say it is our intention to add audio logs to the game before the year is out. You know, I'll give us a big window there to implement it. But you know, we do want to make it so it's not just picking up things that you have to read. It's things that you can actually listen to in here to help tell that story. And as we showcased in ISC with a performance capture episode just a few weeks ago, you know, we are moving towards, we want to be able to get some of these broadcasts and stuff on screens and landing zones and stuff, and be able to push out story elements to you that you don't have to go and find yourself. So we're committed to trying to make that work this year. We're committed to trying to make audio logs this year, stuff like that, because we are very serious about our desire to tell these stories and improve the methods in which you tell the story. So.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, the change to the new loading screen alone has just given us a nice opportunity.
Oh, that, yeah.
Just a little bit of narrative. Again, it's text reading, which maybe is not as exciting, but the branding team has done an amazing job of doing the art for them. And
things we can do this year without requiring too much feature work, without pulling too many resources away from finishing out Squadron 42, and without introducing too much instability into the PU and stuff like that. It's like I said, it's all got to be managed. It's all got to be balanced within the whole. But we are making those efforts. A few weeks. It was March 13th that episode came out. Well, look at you. You can read a calendar. I've done. This is my 1,217th video for Star Citizen. I can't keep track. I can't.
just
I
did.
don't know when the last one was.
You just did, though. You just
Cut me
said.
some slack, man. Finaro, that was the first comment Finaro has ever made in Twitch chat, and it's to be like, Jared doesn't know how to read a calendar. You made an enemy today, Finaro. You made one comment. I don't know how long you've been a backer. Maybe you've been a backer for like 11 years. And today you made your first comment in Twitch chat, and you made an enemy today. I'm gonna melt his ships. Can I do that? Like,
You say that Dex Celeb can do voice character help, but sometimes the character shines through regardless. Dinklebot. They fucking killed Dinklebot. I'm angry that they killed Dinklebot in Destiny, and they completely rewrote his character. I loved his delivery. His delivery was art. People memed it, but I'm like, I don't give a fuck. He's creating a character who's bored. It's a bored robot, and I love that idea. And instead they gave it to, I forgot what his name is. He's the guy who does everything in video games these days, but
like, not all of them. There's just gonna be one that's gone, and you're not gonna know which one. You're like, what happened? You're gonna think it's a bug. I melted it.
How do you not have a button for that on your desk that you can just press?
All right.
Nolan North, yeah. No,
Folks, thanks.
no shade on Nolan North, but like, fucking shit. It's like he's the go-to guy when they need somebody who just is generic.
Thanks for taking the time to be here,
Always
for
a pleasure.
doing
Yes,
this.
thank you.
As a behind-the-scenes thing, Dave and Will have always been my foundation for these things. Whenever I need something and other folks are busy, folks have to cancel for whatever reason, stuff like that. It's something has to delay because it's not ready to be talked about or shown or whatever. The number of times I've had to go hat in hand to these two people and say, please help me do my job.
It was such a heartwarming statement, but also reinforced that we're never your first choice.
Nope, not wrong. No. Not wrong. So David and Will, not my first choice. Thanks for watching. We'll be back. We'll be back next week with a special behind the ships episode. It was behind the ships next week, right? Yep.
And what day is that?
Where we reveal the first ship that's coming for this year's Invictus just a little bit early. So stay tuned for that.
Attack!
For Will and Dave. Now again, not my first choice. I am Jared Huckabee. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week, everybody. Take care. Bye.
He just peed now. Troy Baker and Nolan North are great, but I like them, but other people are good too. I have to attack and I'm still not excited. Ghost was bored because Dinklage was bored. He apparently hated the role. Yeah, I heard he didn't like it. But at the same time, like, I liked his board approach. I feel like the reason why people hated it was or people didn't like it because they thought that he didn't give a shit because he didn't. But I feel like if they had kept it in and people weren't as memey about it, it would have been better. But now, like, do you fucking know Ghost's voice really? Like, it slides off my fucking brain. Maybe it's because it's Nolan North and his voice just slides off my brain these days, but. You probably hated the role after the scroll. Oh yeah, duh. Bungie. The Bungie problem. Holy fuck. Talk about fucking rewrites and reworks. God, Bungie is notorious for that shit. As a long-term Halo fan going back to the original Combat Evolved, fuck, man, Bungie's awful about that. The amount of times Bungie will build a game, come up with a bunch of cool ideas and story, only to a year before release realize that everything they did is pointless and is too expensive and they need to completely pare it down, and then rewriting the whole goddamn game in a year and making it in a year. That's happened like 4 times in Bungie's existence. And they only have like 12 games under their belt. What's up, Paul? I just got a D&D. What did I miss? Everything. We just literally went through the entire live Q&A. It's bad management. It's awful management. The only thing that they had going for them is they had Blam. Their Blam engine was the thing that kept them from imploding, because they could do that. They could scrap an entire story and go from scratch because they had their own engine that they could just lie back on. To a degree, it's kind of like a Bethesda problem. They have the opposite problem though, where they just sort of lazily put together a game and then sort of piece it together in post. But that's the same problem. They just lay back on the fact that like half of Bethesda have been there since before Morrowind. Or, well, since Morrowind. So, like, most of the people who are working in Bethesda at the higher levels and doing a lot of the management stuff are just kind of like, let's just do the engine. Let's just use Creation Engine. So we know what it is. Super easy for us to mess with. And we'll change some things around here and there, but which is an advantage, but it's also lazy. It allows for being locked into things we can do. Todd didn't just do miscellaneous stuff on Daggerfall. He was the one, when everything imploded, Todd was the one who picked up the slack and ended up being one of the project leads on Daggerfall. Like, he was doing miscellaneous stuff, and then I think the head of Daggerfall left like midway through the game, had some problems with Bethesda, and Todd just got emergency promoted. And pretty much everyone who made the original Elder Scrolls 1 and 2 were gone by the time Morrowind was coming out. So Todd was he became lead. Todd Howard became lead developer by necessity. He was just the oldest person in the room, and they're like, "All right, Todd, here's Morrowind. Good luck." And so this just kind of like, "All right, fuck it. We're going Hail Mary. It's either this or we all fucking lose our jobs. So let's just have fun with it." Hey, Dad Bod. Yeah, Morrowind was a great example of Bethesda firing on all cylinders because they were working like it was the last game. Oh no, Chris has always been bad at hitting deadlines. Chris's problem though is that Chris is over himself whenever it happens. He needs somebody there to tell him no. He needs someone to go in and go, "No, bad. Don't do that. Get back on track." He needs someone to slap him. He needs a leash. And that's kind of what a lot of the management team at CIG is there for, is to tell Chris no. I can tell you right away, from my understanding and from the people I've talked to at CIG, the management team are all very active and they all have their opinions, but they're not yes men. They all have their opinions and they bring them full bore to their meetings. And I'm not going to say things get heated, but they definitely people get enthusiastic disagreements, let's just say that. Richard Tyre is a great example of that, where Richard Tyre, I feel like Richard Tyre is a Chris speaker. He kind of takes what Chris wants and then translates it into actual things. He's sort of the transmutationist of CIG, where Chris is like, "I want this," and Rich goes, "You want this, this, and this. We're going to do these three things. This is how we're going to get to these points. We're going to go from there." But does CIG take their word to heart, or does it go one ear out the other? He does. I've heard multiple cases where Chris was told this isn't going to work, and Chris said, "Okay, cool. Let's not do that like that. Let's do it somewhere else." Chris is very personable with the people he works with. From the people I've talked to who worked with him, he is not the guy who's like my way or the highway. He's like, show me what's better. Show to me why this is a better idea. Which can also be a problem because, as Jared likes to say, CIG's not afraid of having a better idea. And the problem is if you keep having better ideas, you don't fucking make a game. You make ideas. Have any good examples of a time Chris accepted something that wouldn't work? Oh, I remember this discussion. I can't remember exactly what it was. Oh, transit system. The transit system we have now is a compromise. Chris wanted to have actual physicalized elevator shafts for every elevator. They wanted physical. Yeah, the Wonkavaders is a compromise because Chris wanted you to travel at reasonable speeds through a shaft from all points of a station. I think it's a balance with Star Citizen. I think a lot of early backers were sold on the idea, but I'm pretty sure most backers who backed between 2020 and 2025 were sold on the game, the potential of the game rather than the idea. But yeah, so the problem, and we did have some physical elevators, but it took the person who was in charge of that to sit down to Chris and say, it will take 3 years for us to build these out and test them and make them work. And even then, it's going to take, they calculated the time it would actually take to travel between the various places on a station and how fast that would be. And Chris was like, okay, that's not what I want. It's like, yeah, you don't want this. Yeah, all hangars were going to be physicalized, and they backed off of that because they realized how fucking insane that would be. So Chris definitely wants to do all of the things when Chris says, I don't want to fake it. And then his developers come up and say, this is how expensive it will be to not fake it. And Chris will go, all right, let's fake it. Yeah, how much time they spent on just getting the perspective right? Because they unified the first person and third person cameras, they spent fucking years trying to make it so that you wouldn't get seasick when you were walking. And the solution they came up with was chickens. Chicken stabilization. Yeah. So what they did was they kept all of the super in-depth first person, third person integrations and because most guns, when they fire in Star Citizen, they fire from the barrel. They don't fire from your head. If you look at any game released recently, most games, a handful of them don't, will actually just have the gun, the bullet fire from your perspective, from your base rather than from the gun itself. And Star Citizen from the beginning wanted to have physicalized bullets inside the guns to fire them out and track the bullets. The problem with that is that if you're aiming down the sights, you don't aim the spot where your crosshair is going isn't where your bullet will hit, because your sight is up here and your barrel's down here. So in physicalized actual shooting, you have to kind of compensate for that. But usually you have other means of doing so with your sights and other things like that. You don't have that with Star Citizen. So what they did was they changed it so that it now sort of fires from, it still fires from the gun, but it kind of fires from the perspective of where you're shooting from. I'll lull you to sleep there, Execute. They fire from your head in ADS, but hip fire. Yeah, exactly. That was the compromise. And one of the problems was that as you're running, you naturally stabilize your head so your vision isn't going. But when your character is moving their head, your head is jarring all over the place in Star Citizen. So what they did was they came up with the idea of using the example of chickens. Now chickens' heads will stay the same no matter where their bodies move. They sort of gyro-stabilized players' heads using that idea from chickens.
Scoop, super chatted $5. Happy office hours night. Appreciate your poll. Enjoy a coffee on me laughing face.
Thank you, Scoop, for that $5. You're very important, Bubber. So, yeah, and as Amos says, it's still got problems. But it was, Amos, you remember those days. I know you've been around that long. You remember the days before chicken stabilization. It was vomit-inducing. It was awful. This was before they fully added FPS gameplay into the game. It was bad. Is the road work for planets going to be a thing, or is it back burner now? Oh, like roads and planets? Don't expect it. CIG doesn't even know why people are so obsessed about roads on planets. We're not going to see it. They tried so many things, didn't work at all. Yeah. So like the chicken stabilization is a solution to the problem without having to scrap everything that they've already done. Meanwhile, there are 5-wheeled vehicles in production. The honest to God answer is don't have so many fucking boulder fields. CIG wants to differentiate the landscape. Stop using fucking rocks. Start using shrubs. So wanting an ocean planet? Goss. Goss is an ocean world. There's a couple ocean worlds in Star Citizen. Hear me out, Paul. What if we're able to make our own roads with base build? I'd love to see that. I don't think CIG is going to do it because CIG fundamentally doesn't understand that players want roads. I don't know who you have to shake at CIG to convince them that there is a huge amount of people who want fucking roads in the game, but I don't think it's going to happen. Roads are base features of CryEngine. Well, CIG has talked about the idea of doing, one of the reasons why they did rivers was because they wanted to use that same system to be able to procedurally generate roads in the game. But dumb question to ask if ships can go underwater. There's a great episode of Futurama where they go underwater. And Leela turns to the professor and goes, "How many atmospheres of pressure can the ship handle, Professor?" The professor goes, "Well, it's a spaceship, so between 0 and 1. So I don't think any ships can go underwater in the Star Citizen universe. I've loved that line for a good 25 years. Well, it's a simple way of explaining, like spaceships aren't designed to handle higher pressures. Imagine people's heads exploding when the Idris behind the ships 3 weeks from now. I would love to see that. I don't think so, though. I think CIG is going to hold off on the Idris until until engineering is in. That's one of those ships that's like, I think is broken without engineering, because like I think at least last I saw you could still fire the fucking railgun from the pilot's seat. It's like ooh. Not until engineering is more than just fuses, yeah. I think CIG is just going to yeet it out anyways. I mean, I hope so. Like, having you know how hyped people would be if the Idris was added in May? If the Idris was coming out in May, people would lose their fucking minds. Like, that is an example of building fucking momentum. Like, everyone would be coming back to Star Citizen. CIG would crash fucking servers all throughout Invictus if the Idris was available for people. They nerfed the Idris HP build by half. They're working on the Idris a lot, which is true. But what else is also what else is also important that uses the Idris? Squadron 47, exactly. But almost certainly, a lot of the stuff they're changing in Star Citizen is because they have lessons learned from Squadron in terms of how the Idris handles and what's going on in Squadron itself. So always remember that that's still going to be in play. Again, I want to believe, but I don't believe currently. I know they say things all the time, but didn't they say it won't come out until Squadron 42 release, didn't they? I believe that they will come out, the Idris will come out when they announce the actual release date of Squadron. They will announce the actual release date of Squadron either next month or by like August or this October around CitizenCon. They'll have a hard and fast date that they'll announce it at, rather than just the year. And that will correspond with the release of the Idris. That's my belief, because if it's done, CIG will eat it out. Don't get it twisted, y'all. If CIG releases the Idris, they're probably not going to sell it in the stores. They'll do their usual release of like waves that you could purchase it. The biggest indicator is that they not have only been working on the Idris, but a lot of have also been testing a bunch of the PU the last couple of weeks. They could just test it in Squadron 42 or PTU. Or in the PTU, yeah. See, that's my one concern about an Idris releasing, is that if the pilot controls the railgun without engineering, when they actually add in engineering, because that's going to come anyways, people get real pissed because they're like, I could solo my Idris, now I can't. This is bullshit. You'll still see Idrises everywhere like you do with the Polarises. Of course, until there's consequences for pulling out your Idris, it's going to be the case. Oh, but wait a minute. We're talking about the P, right? If CIG is releasing the Idris, not releasing the M, they're going to release the P. There is no railgun on the P. There's the P, the M, and there's also a Hurston beam bespoke in the files. Yeah, but they haven't sold the M in forever. The only way you can get the M is if you shell out a shit ton of money. Because all of the ones they've sold up to now have been the P. Like, all the ones that they sell in the releases. The P is... No. Macton, the P is out. The P is all over the place. The P is everywhere, okay? It's all over the verse. They're just peeing everywhere. I'm gonna see how long I can get this to go before YouTube gets mad at me. Yeah, it's done. Its model is in the game. They have it in there. It's like R. Kelly out there. I've heard so many people tell me that the Idris can just railgun my Kraken to death. But I have to ask, can your Idris railgun my Kraken? Mark, I am a married man, okay? So the answer is I'd have to ask my wife first. But I appreciate that you thought of me when it comes to railgunning your Kraken. No, that's not a no. I keep my options open. I don't know how Mark looks. He may be a very handsome man. He may be exactly the type I look for. I'm not gonna lie, that pun was not intentional. Just how my brain works. Hey, Kraken, we like your vibe. But yeah, no. If an Idris is within railgun range of a Kraken, the Kraken fucked up. Because yeah, run a tram in your Kraken. I like the name Transient Arcadia. That's a good name for a ship. I can't ask my wife because then she might have an idea how much I spent not taking that risk. Oh yeah, if Mark looks like Cal Mason. Whoo, whoo. I just want Spectre to be full of good vibes for once. If they release the Idris, it'll be so much love for CIG for Spectrum for at least a day or two. I told my friend he needs to name his Idris K in the mood. My dude, you're a twin with silver and shorter hair. Hey, I like me. In a way, I hope we get the beam laser with the Idris release so that we can actually do some significant testing with that weapons system for CIG. The big balancing factor with the Idris is always going to be its cost. Like right now, the problem with things like the Polaris is that the Polaris doesn't cost any money. Oh no, I used up all my torpedoes. Okay, you can just claim your ship and then play it for them. How long is a Polaris reclaim? Isn't it like an hour or two? Paul, I gotta ask, what the hell's going on with the ground vehicles? All they do is bounce, and my tank tracks just flicker like lights. Yeah, so there was an entire overhaul that CIG has been working on for ground vehicles, for like tires and tracks and stuff like that, to be more like contour with the ground. That whole initiative, I think, is paused because of everything else that's been in there. But it's been one of the main focuses for ground vehicle combat.
Them biddies.
Remember, when it comes to Star Citizen and SIG, hope is the first step on the
On the
road to disappointment.
That's a good one. Also, Astro, fair warning, but I will be active recruiting / press scanning peeps into crew my Idris, especially since that's the ship that literally got me into Star Citizen. It ought to be a week. Yeah. No, I think CIG needs to just dramatically increase the claim timers for the heavier ships. And like with an Idris, I expect it to be 24 hours. It should be longer, but that's the problem. If people feel like they can just claim their Idris and move on, then there's no reason to like okay, cool, you've got a ship that you can pull out whenever you need to just, you know, beat stick people to death. Currently, the Idris is only 4 hours for its claim time. Too short. Or its power, that's way too short. I mean, honestly, I think most of the smaller ships are where they need to be, but once you get to the large ships and above, they need to start increasing the timer. They didn't refill torps and reclaim for a hot minute, then until rioting started. Yeah, because people started saying, but this bug took away my ship. It's like, you're gonna have to just suck it up at some point, because like bugs won't be around forever. But there will never be a point where you're okay with that, because a bug will still eat your ship alive. And it's like, well, yeah, well, there might be a better time in the future. Yeah, and CIG might actually release Star Citizen at some point. But it's more likely that CIG is going to release Star Citizen than there's going to be a point where you're not. Your ship isn't going to get eaten by a bug at some point. I mean, I don't think large ships should be a day or two. I think large ships should be like a couple of hours. The average gameplay timer for Star Citizen is 2 to 4 hours. That's roughly my estimate, is the average person plays for about 2 to 4 hours if they play regularly in a session. Because it usually takes about 2 to 4 hours to do 1 or 2 missions. Even like the big mission chains take usually about 4 hours to do. So if it's 4 hours, then the large ship should cost a 4-hour timer, because that's a session. Yeah, Polaris should be 24 hours. So should the Reclaimer. So should the 890 Jump. And then and the Hammerhead should be around that as well. And then when you're looking at the Idris and the Javelins, those should be several days. And no expedite, yeah. Like Eve, old rule, you can't afford to replace it, don't use it. Exactly. If you can't afford to replace it because of bugs, if you can't afford to have it bugged out, don't use it. Stream, my name is Paul, Berserker1, Batman Sarah, your humble host and space bartender here at the AstroPub, your space bar at the end of the universe. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. We got a good one for you. How you doing? Capital ships are strategic assets. They need strategic length timers. 7 days gives a time for a full week cycle of war to take place before the ship comes back. True, yeah. The don't fly without rebuy, the old model from Elite. Yep. Yeah, Pioneer should also be up there, honestly. I think usefulness should also be there should inform claim timers, and I do think that the Reclaimer, that the 890 and the Reclaimer are both useful enough. They should be. Like straight up, I have had experiences with the 890, where it proves that the 890 is a viable platform. You can use that thing for a lot of good sources. It's just been eclipsed by the Polaris because the Polaris is better at it. Well, that's the other thing. I think CIG needs to add in the ability for you to tractor a ship to a location to get it repaired after it's knocked down. That's engineering. That's why I'm thinking engineering is important.
Ever take away my space game.
Veritas just resubscribed for 10 months.
Thank you so much, Veritas, for that 10 months of Twitch Prime sub. You're very important, Pablo. Very impressive, rainy pedestrian. This is your fault. You're doing good night. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. All right, I'm going to be right back, chat. Speaking of pee, when I come back, we'll do a little bit of look into the... we're not going to do a capsule because the roadmap roundup is kind of lame, but we'll look at it in ways to see what we can get. Be right back, chat. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, make sure you mute this section because they're going to go ham.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Stand by for Titanfall. Stand by for Titanfall. Stand by for Titanfall.
I'm not back yet. You can still spam. I'm going to get some water.
Stand by for Titanfall. Stand by for Titanfall. Stand by for Titanfall.
I love democracy. Genesis.
Stand by for Titanfall. Stand by for Titanfall.
Genesis.
2 words. Distress bacon. 2 words. Distress bacon. 2 words. Distress bacon.
Stand by for Titanfall. Stand by for Titanfall. Stand by for Titanfall. Stand by for Titanfall.
2 words. Distress bacon.
Barcelona! 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 Genesis? Barcelona! Barcelona! Good news, everyone! Genesis? Good news, everyone!
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Barcelona! 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 Barcelona!
Drugs.
Barcelona! 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 Barcelona!
Fun buttons off. Darkside's great. I used to be on Atlas RP for Darkside. I just told you that it's off. This is your first time on Darkside RP. It's good. Knowledge, are you still here? You still do Darkside RP? Knowledge is, for those of you who don't know, Knowledge is actually a role player. Damn good one, too. You're not for this season? Oh, okay. Yeah, RPNet's fun. You're a werewolf now? That's pretty good. Darkside used to be one of the premier ones for roleplay outside of stuff. They're treating it like lol, have fun season. Okay. Well, update on the AI. We have gotten it to manage everything org related with a mission system, fleet system and roster, ship-based data, lore search, and cargo management. Which AI is this? There's a Dune Dark RP for the like Conan Dune version. Oh, neat. They'll be in the public servers bullying the PvP crowd. Escape. Don't piss off the furries. We've already had multiple conversations here that if they have, what's the old saying? If they have enough money to build a complicated fursuit, they have plenty of money to build a pipe bomb that they can mail to me. I am not going to be here. They run the fucking internet. All right? We do not insult the furries because they could destroy all of the Star Citizen servers. We let them be. I was asking if I made an AI would make sense in lore. You said they would be considered outlaws, but we still decided to made it. Our goal is to link it to the voice command system. That's great. That's great. It would be it does make sense in lore because I think Scuba, I think I told you this already, but like AI is really advanced in the Star Citizen universe. They've gotten really high level AI. It just always fucks up and kills people. So that's why it's illegal. Except Nazi furries, yeah. But they don't run the AWS servers. Waiting for that Banu video to RP in Star Citizen. Hey, it's gonna be out this weekend. Like I said at the very beginning of the stream, I was every single time. So like I was gonna get it, like work on it this week on Tuesday and Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But Tuesday was when Oblivion released. And I wasn't necessarily excited for it, but my wife was super fucking hyped. And so I was like, all right, let's get you going. Turns out my wife's PC is so fucking old that it can't run the remake of Oblivion. So I just built a brand new PC and had a perfectly working gaming PC that I wasn't using, so I gave it to her. Turns out her monitor was from 2014. And we didn't have any of the cables to convert her VGA connector to HDMI to be able to plug that into the graphics card or display port to plug it into the graphics card so she can run it. So she got my, so she got my PC, and then we had to go out and buy her a new monitor because she needed a new monitor. So she went out and got a brand new. Went out to Costco and got her a brand new, like 1440. It just so happens that it was actually one of the ones that people were recommending. On it was an MSI one. So she got a brand new monitor, and I helped her reinstall, like take my old PC and like get everything installed for her preferences and download the game. That. When I got home from work at like 5, I spent the next 3 hours helping her out, including going out and getting things set up. So by the time it was like 9 or 10 o'clock by the time everything was wrapped up and she was doing what she wanted to do. And I was like, I'm too tired. I'm gonna go to bed. Well, no, it's not that it was poorly optimized for. It's that my wife's PC only was a 4-core PC. Her CPU was 4-core. Yeah. I was telling my wife was like, it runs Stardew fine, and I'm like, because Stardew can run on a potato, love. Like, so it was like, because I had honestly put together a PC when I was building my PC. In the process of buying it, I put together a PC that would be like, all right, this is good enough for her to run the game she likes to run and to future-proof her for all future games. And so I was going to build her one for her later. My wife practically had a CRT. Yeah, it was basically a slightly above a CRT. It was still an LCD monitor, but it was like 2nd gen LCD, maybe 3rd gen. My wife is a better gamer than I am. So my wife played her earliest days of gaming was modding Morrowind. She not only played Morrowind, but she learned how to mod Morrowind so that she built her own mods. What was that, 2003? She was 13 when she was modding Morrowind. Yeah, I do not have that kind of gamer cred. If you like my wife, if you enjoy these stories of my wife, you should probably buy her book. She's also a published author. Panic Eyes, ! Book in chat. That'll get you the link. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and you can get it as an e-reader version as well. Go buy it. Go support her. Because she actually gets, she does get residue. She gets residue from it. She gets residuals from it, so. But that's the thing. So because my wife really liked Morrowind and enjoyed Oblivion, but hadn't played it in a while, and she saw everything, she's like, I'm gonna play this. She took the next day off of work. That's how serious she was about this. So I was like, all right, she took the next day off of work. I'm gonna support the shit out of her. All right. Also because I know I'm gonna do that with Squadron and maybe some other games, like if Titanfall 3 comes out, like they've been saying. So I was like, don't get mad at me. Panic Eyes brought to you by 4-Cores. Yeah, she wrote that on a 4-core PC. Royalties, thank you, Shapasta. That's what it is. That's what it's called, not residuals. So to say my wife is a Bethesda superfan is undercutting it. Like that was her first real video game experience was Morrowind on the PC. I love Oblivion Remaster, but I already want there to be mods. There's already 2 mods out there. By the way, I finally played Titanfall's 2 campaign on your recommendation, and it's goddamn, it's good. There's a reason why people say it's the best game, one of the best games ever made. We are a cult, all right? Titanfall fans are a cult. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and we will convert all of you to the cult eventually. This is not an option. You're coming with us. Hey, Paul, how's her book doing so far? She did okay. I think she sold like 1,000 or so books, so like nothing stupendous. She's not on the New York Times bestseller, but she made $700 from the release, which is like not bad for not advertising it, not really like going out and publishing it. And it was really her first novel, so she's just kind of learning how the whole process went. So, and you know, she gets money from any of those things, so. Four cores 7 years ago. Actually, yeah, that's about when she built this PC. So this is going to lead to the rumors. This is, I said at the very beginning, there is rumors of Titanfall 3. There are rumors that are serious rumors from serious people. Unfortunately, as more gaming journos have gotten into this discussion and started looking into Titanfall in terms of how it's functioning, the rumors are true and not true. For my fellow Titanfall fans, there is no Titanfall 3 in the works. Titanfall 3 is a myth. It was started and canceled multiple times. However, there has been a rumor, which is all but confirmed now, that there is another game in the Titanfall universe that's being produced. And it has Titans in it. So we're not going to get Titanfall 3, but we are going to get another game with Titans in it. So it's not going to be the same as Titanfall 3 in terms of like wall running and piloting and that whole story. But it is going to be a Titan game. One of the reasons why we never got Titanfall 3 was because they were working on it, but they were afraid that the source engine was too outdated by the time they were going to release Titanfall 3. So all of the efforts that they went into making Titanfall 3 eventually became Apex. But even though Apex was still in development, at least twice Respawn started development on what they thought was going to be Titanfall 3 and canceled it. The extraction shooter Titanfall game? Yeah. Live service extraction shooter with Titans in it. So the joke is escape from the frontier. Titanfall Frontier. I'm not too fussed about that. Honestly, if they have PvE modes of that sort of situation, I wouldn't mind it either. Because they have like the Frontier Defense in game right now. And honestly, a mech extraction shooter has been tried once, poorly, but it's something that could be done. I could see it working. Because a lot of the Titanfall mechanics are already there for extraction shooters. Like when you play a Titanfall multiplayer match, you are in a ship, you arrive at a location, you jump out of a ship, and you're now on the ground. And you fight, and you can call down Titans, Titans come down, and then when you leave, when you lose, you have to get back onto a ship to escape. So that's already kind of built into the fiction and kind of built into the gameplay of leaving ships and extracting on ships at the end of the match, well before extraction shooters existed. And how do you deploy a Titan? Titanfall. So I could easily see a situation where a Titanfall game exists, or a Titan game exists, a game in the Titanfall universe, where you deploy from a Titan through Titanfall to the ground. You go collect resources or scrap or something like that. You go complete some missions, and then you go to an extraction point, and then you extract from the area. So having that being PvE factions would, I think, work really well. I think that's a perfect example of, and a perfect example of this sort of thing is Helldivers. Helldivers is an extraction shooter. You deploy to the ground, you complete a bunch of missions, and then you extract. If they took the Helldivers model and applied it to Titanfall, ooh, baby. Ooh, mwah, oh, baby, sign me the fuck up. Helldivers is not an extraction shooter, it's cinema. I just want them to do something in the Titanfall universe with Titans, because I like big stompy robots. But yeah, Synduality Ada was bad. Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. You mean Mech Warrior? Yeah, but with Titanfall. Titanfall Mech Warrior? Yes, please. In my veins. Because in Mech Warrior, you can't climb out of the mechs and start shooting people. Two 4-man squads? Yeah. All right, we're gonna watch the Titanfall trailer, Titanfall 2 trailer, because so you can see. It's so good, chat. It's so good. It also doubles as the intro cinematic.
Of all the things I've seen on the battlefields of the frontier, the pilot is the true dominant force. Fast and agile. Graceful, yet devastating. Perceptive. Resourceful. And relentless. A pilot sees the world differently. Sheer walls become flanking routes. Pilots fight differently. Experienced in deception and maneuver, even overwhelming odds shift in their favor. But what truly separates the pilot from all the grunts and machines of the battlefield is the bond between a pilot and a Titan. When linked to a Titan, a pilot can only be stopped by overwhelming force, or an equal. The frontier has been the only home I've ever known. For years, our lands have been destroyed by the IMC, forcefully taking our resources, polluting and destroying our planets, and killing us off if we try to resist. Despite recent victories at Demeter and beyond, we have a long way to go before the IMC is defeated. Now, I serve as a rifleman in the militia, fighting to free the frontier. I'm a long way from becoming a pilot. But when that day comes, I hope I can live up to the honor.
I'm also going to do this one. So did the Titanfall 2 trailer as well. Oh, I love this one too. This was another good one. PP is where it's at, but
all riflemen to drop ships. This is not a drill.
My name is Jack Cooper, and I'm no pilot. I was just in the right place at the wrong time. Sometimes you don't get to choose your path. It chooses you.
BT. Transferring authorization to new pilot. I am now linked to Rifleman Jack Cooper.
But whether or not I was meant for this, doesn't matter. Because now, we are all that stands between salvation and extinction.
Listen up. The IMC have developed a weapon. It has the power to destroy entire worlds. Stand by for Titanfall.
He was never meant to be my Titan.
Gonna make it out of this, BT. Hang in there.
Copy that, pilot.
And I never planned to be his pilot.
I will not lose another pilot. BT! Got you.
Don't worry, BT. I'm not going anywhere.
Look out!
So good. Is that Robot Daddy? That is BT, baby. Oh no, I still think Titanfall 2 is one of the best games ever made. Hands down. So if Respawn releases Titanfall 3 or this extraction shooter with Titans in it, you know, Titanfall extraction shooter, I am going to no life it like a dumbass. Yeah, Matt Mercer is Jack Cooper, which is pretty cool. I think it would have been better if they wrote that Cooper was better with the infantry since he's a rifleman. Yeah, that is Matt Mercer. Yeah, Matt Mercer plays Rifleman Jack Cooper. Just don't release Titanfall 3 a week after a Battlefield game, the same week as a COD game. Yeah, that was why everyone wonders, like, well, Titanfall 2 failed. It's like Titanfall 2 failed because it was designed to fail. EA sent that thing out to die. They fucking it was Titanfall 2 didn't die. It was murdered. Now they'll release it concurrently with GTA 6. If you can have Titanfall 3, but only if never Star Citizen, would you? Stream, my name is Paul Berserker 01 Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender here at the AstroPub, your space bar at the end of the universe. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. We're gonna go for you. Welcome to the Office Hours. This is a Yak stream where we talk about Star Citizen, though we've been talking about Titanfall because there's rumors floating around of a Titanfall 3 in production. The more I looked into it, the more it seems like there isn't a Titanfall 3 in production, but there is another game in the Titanfall universe, which is rumored to be an extraction shooter with Titans. So, how about we convince CIG to produce Titanfall 3? We'd get an amazing sequel in 15 years. I mean, we're already at that stage with Respawn. Respawn released Titanfall 2 in 2016, I want to say, or was it 2018? I think it was 2016. So we're coming up on a decade for Titanfall 2. So Apex Plus. My guess is they're trying to do an extraction shooter What I would hope they're doing, what I'd be hoping they're doing is taking a look at games like Helldivers and taking a look at extraction shooters and deciding to do more like Helldivers, less like Tarkov. Yeah, they've been busy with the Jedi trilogy, and they're still making Apex. Though they're also kind of killing Apex. What are you up to there, Becky? We also watched the entirety of SCL on lore and stuff like that. So there's some good news and some disturbing news. One of the biggest things I have problems with CIG currently with the stuff they talked about was they're sort of de-emphasizing negative rep. So there's going to be not as much consequences for people in game for their actions, which I'm not a fan of, but. I'm not gonna lie, there's a game that's been rolling around in the back of my head for a while, which is basically a mech extraction shooter. The idea being, I'll pitch the idea to y'all and see if you like it or not. The idea being where it's single player, but you can co-op with it, and you drop down onto a planet, randomly generated, or a couple of different maps randomly generated. And the goal is to fight randomly generated AI to gather resources. And then you bring these resources back and can use these resources or salvage or scrap to upgrade your mech or to push towards a colony that you're going to be building on the planet. And there is a somewhat story involved where you build a colony, kind of like a colony simulator, where the goal is to build this colony long term. But you also want to upgrade your mech, but you can also get better upgrades and better bonuses by building the colony. And your goal is to eventually build this colony up and protect the colony as you're going through. But it's sort of single player, but co-opable with multiplayer to kind of go through that. So it's sort of an extraction shooter where you have a hub world, which is a spaceship and then eventually your own colony that you can then build up. That sounds a lot better than whatever Marathon is supposed to be. Well, I like mechs, I like PvP, I like the Helldivers style of gameplay, but I also like colony simulators, and I like the way that games like Pow World function, and like Repo and Lethal Company, where you can kind of have just a bunch of 4 idiots doing fun things, and you can do it offline, or offline you can just do it co-op, but it's not like a larger universe sort of thing. Sorry, Astro, so tired of extraction shooters. It's not really an extraction shooter as much as it's a, as it is a, like a Helldivers style game. Hell Marathon, you mean Timo Presents Destiny? The problem I have with extraction shooters is mostly to do with their stupid PvPvE sort of situation, where they try to mix the PvP and PvE together, and it's almost always unbalanced, and it's just sort of bland. What if we could use backpacks while wearing a t-shirt? We should just be able to use backpacks. Not just on armor, we should be able to use them forever. But Northwest, I'm not a game developer, so I couldn't make that if I wanted to. I could probably figure out how to do it, but it wouldn't be good. And the more I hear about people in the game development industry about like making stuff like that, it's like, that sounds awful. That sounds terrible. That sounds like an awful experience that I would never want to do. bunch of mechs get dropped into an enemy planet and then get left behind, and the rest of their ships in orbit get destroyed. Now the mechs are on their own, kind of like that. But more, the idea was more around the idea that the mechs are part of a group of like a colony that's being built on the planet, but it's like RimWorld. You're stuck on this world. There's no way from home. You have to gather resources to support the colony, and so you have to go out on missions to gather these resources to support this colony. And so part of it is building up the colony, figuring out what buildings to build, interacting with the individual people of the colony, the way you do with a colony game, like a colony builder game. Maybe dealing with like conflicts within the colony, dealing with assaults like other like wild creatures or pirates attacking your colony, and you have to fight them off. To give you some sort of like connection with the people there. And then the colony can give you buffs and other benefits and that kind of stuff, so. RimWorld, don't just casually, I love colony builders. Colony sims are one of those games that if I get them, I will play 100 hours on them, even if they're mediocre. Opening up the can of worms that is networking for multiplayer games is frankly just awful. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I don't like extraction shooters in the sense of using them as a crutch for interaction. And trying to build anything with multiplayer in terms of like multiplayer functionality, like in scope and like a Tarkov is just nuts. But, you know, Lethal Company is made by a handful of people. And it's got limited online capabilities, but it's pretty well done. And there's plenty of games out there that do that sort of limited functionality of multiplayer, where it's like, you know, 1 to 4 people, but it's like it's hosted like from the player's PC or from a dedicated server you can purchase, rather than like a, you know, big grand central thing. Where the fuck is Richard Tyre? Why haven't we heard from him this year? He's making Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. We haven't heard from Chris either. Synergy. I'll have to take a look at that, Steven. It's like a Terraria sort of people move in for traders and things would be nice in a sci-fi game. Yeah. Chris has nothing important to say. I'll do RimWorld. I mean, no one's gonna watch me play RimWorld because I'm not fun with those games. I've said this many times before. I love strategy games. I love colony, I love colony builders. I love those types of games, but I am not entertaining when I play them. I am bad at them. I am not good at them. And I default to such basic bitch sort of gameplay styles that like I am not engaging enough with them. I'd have to really like learn how to play the games and learn how to get better to do that, but you know. All right, let's do the last little thing for this roadmap roundup so we can get a little idea about it and then move on from there. This isn't a capsule because we're just going to read through it, but I can tell you the gist. It's the hairstyles are being added. But yeah, so 4.1, the combat patrol, the ambush, the UE training mission are all been set to committed. And then new hairstyles is released. And then 4.1.1 has tentative additions, and that's it. There's no progress tracker. It's pretty basic. The roadmap roundup is gonna be kind of shit from now on. Maybe we'll get 1 or 2 big updates for it, but most of that will already be announced by the time it gets there, so. I mean, the big addition for lore that I saw was that the fucking metals matter now. You need to have like 6 platoon and Tavaran service markers to be able to like craft things in 411. Well, there are new locations. New lore locations. Say no more. Say no more. But also, you and I and the rest of lore ain't telling people shit where to get those goddamn service markers. Fuck you. We've been doing this shit since you simply adopted scavenging for fucking trash. We were born in it. We learned the hard way where these things spawn and how to get them and what to look for. Fuck all of you. Yeah, you can craft with the metals. In 4.11, a lot of the things that we the things you need to build like a Polaris, or to get the Polaris, or to get the other things from Wiklo, including new equipment and materials, requires the relics, requires artifacts in various stages of decay. Thank you so much there from Christiana Storm for that raid. Welcome everyone to Christiana Stream. My name is Paul Berserker01, Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender here at the AstroPub, your space bar at the end of the universe. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. We got a good one for you. Welcome to the Office Hours. This is a yak stream where we talk about Star Citizen, lore, news, and more. Coming towards the end, but welcome to sit back, relax, and enjoy. What were you up to there, Christiana? Christy, how you doing? That was amazing. Have a follow. Welcome. They put it on every box. Sorry to disappoint you. They put what on every box? That there's metals inside of them now. Just doing some bounty missions. It's great. I doubt that they're going to have metals in every box for the release, though. Every blue box is a different metal. Blue box. I'm trying to think of what those were. I don't know if they're going to do that for the release. It's kind of like, oh yeah, we're going to make this super common now, so no one has to do it anymore. No need to go to Utopia anymore. Everything is in Hathor now. Utopia? The fuck you talking about Utopia? You can get those metals in. You don't even have to go to Hathor to get those metals. You can go there. You can go there where everybody else and get your fucking face shot off. I know where to get them where you don't need to worry about getting your face shot off. Well, there's NPCs, but. Not to mention the massive numbers of like Tavaran War service markers that the lore team the league, my organization, has just stashed away. How's my evening been? It's been relatively eventful. We were watching the ISC or the Star Citizen live on the from the lore team and kind of discussing that. But it's a pretty slow news week, so not much to do. The whole reputation thing's a little off. The TLDR with the reputation is that CIG is simplifying reputation. So with the guild system that they're introducing, instead of getting reputation for every group that you work with, you're just going to get reputation with guilds. There's still going to be some reputation with like smaller groups, but you will never be able to get negative reputation with the larger like lawful groups. So you won't be locked out of locations just because you work with a certain group. So effectively, if you work with criminals, you're not going to get negative reputation with, say, Crusader. So you'll never have to worry about not being able to land at Crusader, which I think is a mistake, but kind of like says, okay, so there's just no consequences for being a dick. No consequences for your decisions, which sort of against the whole reason why I play Star Citizen, but yeah. You might get negative rep with the UEE though. Yeah, but it's not going to stop you from being able to land at Crusader. I'm hopeful that it's not a permanent solution and they are going to backtrack on that, partially because the example they used was doing a mission and failing it and then getting negative reputation with, say, Crusader security. And they felt that that might be a bad thing because if you do that and you get negative reputation with Crusader security, then you won't be able to land at Crusader because you failed the mission. And so they didn't want people to fail missions and then effectively get fucked over because of it.
You can take away my spaceship.
Spaceship.
You can take away my space suit.
Suit.
You can even take away my space lasers.
No pew-pews.
But you can never, ever take away my space game.
Gonzo 209X just resubscribed for 83 months. Don't mind me, just sitting here contemplating my almost 7 years of being subbed.
Jesus fuck. Thank you, Gonzo, for that 83 months of support. Not only do you support me here, but you also support me on Patreon. So you've been here for a long ass time. Thank you so much for all that help. You're a very important pupper, very precipice, very pedestrian. You rock. Shots and cheers in chat, y'all. Shots and cheers. How do they plan for murder hobos to not be branded as such without negative rep? They're not going to. The answer is they're not going to. They're going to hope that the criminality system matters more than anything else, which is like, but the criminality system sucks. It's so not worth it. It's actually just more of an inconvenience than anything else. That's the problem is, yeah, that there is really no UEE. Like right now, there is no UEE presence in Stanton system. I haven't seen a UEE advocacy patrol in forever. So, and we know that the UEE is limited, if not existing at all in Stanton. So, even if the UEE trumps, overrides the local systems, the UEE isn't there. So it doesn't matter. Question doesn't work. Yeah, the answer seems to be a PvP focused MMO, which would be the death of Star Citizen. If CIG becomes pure PvP focused without any PvE, then you might as well pack it up because the game's going to fail when it releases. And that's not like hyperbole. Like every MMO that was been pure PvP based is basically a shell of any other game, if it's still around. The games that have done PvP focused have often had to rapidly change to PvE to even keep people around. A good example of this is New World, the other Lumberyard MMO, the only other Lumberyard game really. It also was an MMO based off of PvP, but when I tested it in closed alpha, and it was all PvE or PvP, dedicated PvP, and it sucked. First off, the latency was awful. And it had some fun aspects, but it was an all PvP MMO that was just boring. And so they realized they fucked up so hard, they needed to pivot. Like they created a team, which included people like Smashly, of dedicated testers who had good feedback. And the thing they learned was they needed to make some PvE in it. So they went from a pure-based PvP game to a PvPvE game. And so they still kept some of the PvP elements, but they had to add PvE. And it basically prevented it from being forgotten. Star Citizen's PvP isn't even 20%. The PvP community of Star Citizen, last I heard directly from CIG staff, was less than 5%. So, like 4 out of every 100 players is a PvPer. Not even Eve is a PvP only game. I think it's a little hyperbole to say Star Citizen's a PvP only game, but it definitely is the direction they seem to be moving with these reputation things. But I do not believe that that's the intent. I think the intent is to simplify reputation so that it is easier to understand and handle, rather than it being intended to preserve griefers or whatever. Who cares about the intent? Its perception is better than reality. But also, Iris, there are like 1,000 people who actively watch SCL. It's more than that, but you're talking about a community of, at least 1 million people who have bought the game. We don't know the active numbers, but the few times they've put active numbers out there, the active numbers are up there with like some of the biggest Steam games. So, like 12th or 13th largest Steam game was, last I checked, was when the numbers they used for its peak hours. So the number of people who watch ISC and SCL is very limited compared to the people who actually play it. They'll revamp crime, removing merits, increasing time, and removing offline timers. They will eventually. like 1,000 people who watch SCL and like 900 of them pay zero attention to what the topic is. Yeah. Hey, Newt, how you doing? What surprises me is looking back at Ultima Online, Richard Garriott was surprised that PvP was an issue, but they fought removing it forever. But ultimately, they ended up making PvE servers. Chris would have been there to see this. Not only would Chris have been there to see it, but Chris would have partially tested it. I know, because I met one of the project managers of Ultima Online. Like, talked with her. Not only was she a project manager for Ultima Online, she was also a project manager for Star Wars: The Old Republic. So she's pretty important in terms of online video game history. And I know she even talked about how basically everyone in the studio tested that damn thing. So like, Chris would have known the lessons from Ultima Online, because he would have been in the meetings where they talked about it. He'd have at least had a drink with a couple of the people, his coworkers, who would talk about and bitch about it. So that's why I don't think it's the actual intent is PvP only, because they also have access to internal metrics. But I think what a lot of people are saying is that the issue is right now that they don't have the resources or the time to make engaging PvE content, so they're leaning heavily on evergreen PvP content. It's a crutch for gameplay, and it gets a lot more attention, which is free advertising. CIG also tends to think more highly of their community than it actually deserves. I remember the Med Wars. They also have this problem, the reverse problem, where they get so obsessed about an economy that doesn't exist that they get mad when they screw up something and players turn it into a thing. That's what happened with the Jumptown Wars. Somebody missed a fucking decimal point and made Widow the most fucking profitable thing in the game. By far. And it just so happened that Widow was right next to Grimhex, or Jumptown was right next to Grimhex, where you could sell the Widow. So everyone went to Jumptown to buy the Widow and then sell it at Grimhex. The thing about it was that Jumptown was not on the map. You had to figure out where it was. So unintentionally, they created one of the best loops that Star Citizen has ever had, where you had to know where Jumptown was, navigate there manually to be able to access it, which meant you had an entire flight time where you were in danger of getting attacked. And so players would lock down Jumptown and fight people off, and it created the most engaging loop in the entire game. Yeah, it's PvP, but like, it also unintentionally created great safe zones for PvEers, because PvEers could still go trade and make a lot of money while not paying attention to Jumptown, because everyone who was looking for the big payouts was going to Jumptown. It was a bug. Jumptown was created by a bug, by a mistake by a developer. And as a result, it created one of the most engaging events in the game. Hey, Zimba. Thank you for watching. Glad you get to catch for live. The real engaging PvE content will be instance raised, just like WoW. They don't have to reinvent the wheel that has been churning billions of dollars into Blizzard's coffers. The real engaging content, I think, is going to be twofold. One, it's actually, with PvE, it's actually engaging with characters to build up reputations and have the stories of those groups. And as you said, PvE raids sort of thing. I have come to report a large findings of weird artifacts. Awesome. That's what we do. That's what my organization does there, Zimba. They're also more frequent, apparently, because of the because they're now required for crafting. The funny thing is saying, like someone kept coming on here and was like, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but you can now get artifacts in any blue box. And it's like, at Hathor, so you have to go to Hathor and punch people in the face to fight over possibly getting the metal you need for for crafting. Okay, you do that, buddy. I don't need to go anywhere near Hathor to get fucking relics. I know where to get them. It's for the next patch, yeah, 4.11. Assuming Lore Team 6 doesn't beat you there, we have stealth teams. Yeah, that is going to be our new like closed group sessions, isn't it? Where we just stealthily insert to a Hathor just to steal relics. Are you here for a line in mine? Fuck you, I'm here to take all of the relics and kill you and take your relics from you. Because it's gonna be in your inventory. I mean, that's what we did last night. Yeah, if you want to join my organization, the League of Relic Enthusiasts, we have an active community. We have a hardcore group of 10 to 20 people who come out and play regularly. And then we have more people who come out during our big expeditions on the weekends. We usually do them on Sundays. But yeah, we have actively play, and we don't just play Star Citizen either. A lot of lore members play Helldivers and Space Marine and that kind of stuff too. So also drop your components, I guess. Stealth insert, out with the goods. Yeah. We have stealth cancers. I wonder if the advocacy badge is still there somewhere. Actually, need to save some as well. First time salvager, is it worth getting size 3 or higher guns off of ships? No, generally no, unless you're going to use them yourself. Unless you're going to use them as weapons for your own purpose. You don't really need to pull or same with the equipment. You're not going to make any money off of it. This is Star Citizen. It's a Star Citizen melody. Or medley is which was playing in the background. Ooh. Oh, all right. It's late. I've been streaming for almost 4 hours. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow for Star Citizen. For Paul and Loken, we'll be doing our Pub and Plays Fridays. We're going to be playing Space Marine 2. New stuff's come out for Space Marine 2. I'm going to go play some Space Marine 2, test this new rig of mine to maximum capabilities. And on Saturday, we've got our Pubathon. So I'm going to be streaming for at least 8 hours, if not longer. It'll max them out to like 16, 18 hours. Where the more you donate and the more you subscribe, the longer I go. And of course, we'll do giveaways and such. But we'll be playing and hanging out and playing the game. We'll be doing also Captain's Table that night. So we'll be doing Captain's Table for with Space Tomato, with HC Vertigo, and Radar Ranger, where we're going to talk about the topic, which is what happened to my space game. Is FPS killing Star Citizen. So we're going to talk about the controversy about how Star Citizen has changed over the years and is the like FPS side of things, the escape from Starkov sort of destroying the game. And then on Sunday, we've got our lore expeditions. And on Monday, we've got our Zero to Hero gameplay we've been doing. So. The announcement should be up in a day or two. So yeah, if you don't want to hang out with the league stuff, what we're doing, you should check out with the Discord. We'll try the announcement there. Yes, it is saved you 2 hours. It's going to be more nuanced discussion because I think a lot of people, there's some people who think that it's destroyed the game. Other people who say that it's more, it's sort of always been there, the FPS side of things. We're going to talk a little bit more about Star Citizen as a space game and like where does it sit? What's its goals? Has it changed? That sort of thing. It should be a good discussion on the topic itself. I thought it was a good topic because I've heard it be brought up a lot, and I think it's always good to sort of discuss it in the context of what Star Citizen is right now. Also, this weekend I am for sure going to, even if I have to not sleep, I'm going to be doing a bunch of stuff for. I'll be getting the Banu episode out. So this weekend will be the Banu episode. I will be working on it tonight and tomorrow. And hopefully I can get it out by Sunday if I can't get it out by Saturday. And yeah, it should be good. And I also next week will be releasing my first review video of ships on this channel, TheAstroPub, for YouTube. So keep that in mind. I'll be doing a review every single ship in the game. Every one. So it'll be fun. All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. Love your faces. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday